What's up, guys? So today on the podcast, I want to give you guys a warning. We're talking to one of my newer students, Brandon, who is also a three-time NAIA collegiate wrestling champion. And he uses the F-bomb more than any episode that we've ever had.
He may have beat Kurt Osiander for F-bomb. We need to count. Somebody maybe will count them and tell us how many.
Yeah,
if you feel so inclined.
He has channeled his inner David Goggins, and
that's right.
He's brought it up. But I mean, fine. There's a lot of good stuff on the podcast, though. But I'm just letting you know, because I know some people have sensitive ears. I'm just letting you know what's coming in beforehand. So before we get into it. But that said, it's a cool episode. Again, he is a college wrestling champion, super tough. And for any of you guys that maybe either wrestled or even if you're training, there's a lot of good insights into the methodology behind getting better at stuff that he kind of shares with what he did with college and what he's doing with jiu-jitsu now. And I'm hoping that we'll be able to come back in the next couple months with some updates on his positive progress in competition, because he won a NAGA, which was for him. I mean, he was just playing around almost, But it'll be interesting to see what he does at Worlds and everything else. Obviously, he's not competing at white belt. He still wears a white belt at the gym, even though he can thrash some dudes that have been training for a decade, whatever. But he's a white belt at the gym. He's got 2 stripes, and then he's competing at blue belt, because I have to start him at least at blue belt. Like, you can't put that guy in a white belt. I mean, it would just be so mean. I mean, even putting him at blue belt's kind of you could stretch it a little bit, but at least in the gi, blue belt and no gi, he can do like expert divisions and stuff like that, where he competes against guys of like heavier, of bigger weight classes, but skill level. But even then, there's still holes in his game. It's one of those things where he went up against a young guy named Ethan that's in this area, and was able to catch him with some stuff. So he's still got some holes in his game jiu-jitsu wise, and that's why we're doing that. So but anyway, guys, hopefully you enjoy the podcast with him and hear about his wrestling, how he got adopted by one of his wrestling coaches, and just the whole story. It's a really interesting story. I hope you guys enjoy it. And as always, thanks to our sponsor, Charlotte's Web. Charlotte's Web is I would consider them one of the premier CBD companies out there. If you guys don't know this, they did some studies on CBD products, and CBD is starting to get more and more popular. I was listening to I don't know why I got on a went down a wormhole of listening to rabbit hole, whatever. I don't know what you call it. But basically I got sucked into a YouTube like tunnel of pro wrestling videos. Like,
what?
Yeah, dude. Like, so, just like hearing about all the backstage stuff. Cause like, I mean, I wasn't watching the matches. It was more
drama.
It was like more of the stuff that was happening backstage, or the stuff that the wrestlers were going through, like talking about their injuries and everything else. Like, cause I grew up watching pro wrestling up until like I guess I didn't know that they had these names, these eras for it. So I watched wrestling up until like the end of what's called the Attitude Era.
Attitude Era.
Yeah, that's like that's like The Rock, Stone Cold, all that stuff, right? And so I watched all the way through there, and then I stopped watching it. Like once I got into like real wrestling.
Once you grew up,
Well, no, once I got into wrestling. I mean,
I'm kidding. No offense to anyone who loves wrestling. I don't care.
And I said real wrestling. It's a tough sport, man. Tough athletic thing. Tough activity. I mean, because those dudes are broken. God bless, they're broken. Like, they take some stuff. But I was listening to some of them, and several of them in these interviews were talking about using CBD. To try to help out. Like, they were saying, like, man, like, I'm like, because they're all talking with each other. Like, I've had like 6 back surgeries, 2 knee surgeries, replace knees, replace hips. I mean, just all this stuff that they put themselves through, and a lot of them are using CBD. And it's one of those things where I sort of share this, because you can go look the study up if you want to on the internet. But they did some studies. Some people did some studies on CBD products, and they found that, again, out of the sample that they used, like 70% of the products that they found were not accurately labeled.
Yeah.
Sometimes they had more, sometimes they had less, sometimes they had random stuff in it that you never would bargain for. And so that's one of the things where why I do like Charlotte's Web and why I do promote them on the podcast with you, because again, it's a company where they make the product and they use the most stringent processes on the market, right? So like when eventually this stuff gets legalized, or not legalized, but
FDA approved.
Regulated.
Yep.
Regulated, right? That's the key thing, the regulation, where basically there's a process to it. They're going to be just fine. In fact, they're pushing for it.
Absolutely.
Whereas a lot of companies with the CBD are not pushing for it because their processes wouldn't hold up. And you'll probably, more than likely, when it happens, you'll probably see a lot of CBD companies go bye-bye, because, you know, the regulations will become stricter. They won't be able to put up to them. So they're doing a lot of good work out there. And I really enjoy their product. It's consistent. It's effective for what I use it for. And again, it's just for me, it's a part of my evening routine to sort of wind down and get good sleep. If you guys want to check them out, you can check them out at their website, charlottesweb.com. Promo code is Jiu-Jitsu. Use that code, you'll save 15% on the order, and you'll support the podcast, and you'll save a little bit of money on that the product that you get. Again, I encourage people to try it out for a month, as it tends to, from my own personal experience, from the experience of people that have tried it, it takes a little bit to kick in. So get one of the tinctures or get the gummies or whatever it is that you want to try it out for a month, see how you feel, and then kind of make your own sort of assessment, get your own experience from there.
Did you try the original formula?
I did. I'm still using it. It doesn't taste bad. I remember they were telling me, they said it was going to taste really.
It's got a little bit of a darker color to it. Yeah. A little bit of different taste to it, but like they use the alcohol. It's alcohol to extraction process, which I guess you get some different things into the. You get
different terpenes and stuff like that. But they said that I guess the original one is the one that they used on Charlotte for her epilepsy.
Yeah.
So
I like it. I think I feel even a little better with it.
Well, I mean, that's the one that they said that's the stuff that people that have like the I guess the seizures or whatever, like that's the one that they have to have.
Yeah,
they have to.
Got different stuff.
Yeah, they have to use the original formula. So, which I thought was interesting. And also thanks to our sponsor, Epic Roll, epicrollbjj.com. It's a jiu-jitsu gear and apparel company made by a jiu-jitsu practitioner, not some random yahoo out there. I say it like that. There is a company that starts with the letter E, and they make apparel and gear and stuff like that. And
gis, I believe.
And gis, they do. And like, I remember years ago, they like sent me a weird message and, you know, like try our stuff out, whatever. I wasn't really all impressed with anything they sent. And then another person from the company sent me another message, and I was like, hey, you guys already sent me stuff. And then one of my friends, I guess, was quote sponsored by them, and she got screwed over from them. You know, and they're not jiu-jitsu guys. They're not jiu-jitsu people. They're just people, you know, I don't know if people get into certain things just because they see like, well, we think we can make a couple
money
bucks
off it. Sure.
You know, just that kind of stuff. But Matt at Epic Roll, Matt runs it. He is a jiu-jitsu practitioner through and through. I actually got to train with him and hang out with him. He's a very cool dude. And he makes really good looking jiu-jitsu gear and apparel, you know, at least once through the week. I almost always have an Epic Roll shirt of some sort on. And again, I wear his shorts. I pretty much wear his shorts almost every time I roll. It's either his shorts or my shorts. That's it. That's the only two pairs of shorts I wear at this point. And I like his shorts better than I like my own shorts, which is why
the best of both worlds is if he combines your shorts.
Yeah, which we're working on. We're working on getting him to make
us mess with him. Like, Matt, come on, man. But you know, everything kind of takes a little time. Everything takes time. You want it right. You want it perfect.
It's going to be exciting. And again, when it happens, guys, like be ready for it, because it always happens. Like the gis come through with their pre-sales, and then what happens? People missed out, and they're like, "Hey, Chewy, you got any extra gis?" I'm like, "I don't have extra gis." You know, so when it comes around, like be ready for it. You know, save a couple extra bucks, just kind of stashed away. I know you'll have to also maybe if you're a guy and you know maybe your wife's not so keen on getting more gear, you might need to kind of let her know. You go ahead and start to get your story of why you need some extra gear. You know, there's always kind of See, like for me, I can go to my lady and I'm like, hey, baby, I need some extra gear. And she can't argue with it because I do it for a profession, right? But for some of you guys that don't do it, you know, your ladies are like, why do you need another gi? Why do you need another pair of rash guard and shorts? And, you know, the answer is because you just want it, but you got to get a better.
Sometimes you need it.
But yeah, sometimes you do, but you got to get a better story together. So get your story together, have a couple of bucks saved up for when that comes. But until then, if you'd like to get yourself a t-shirt, some gear, shorts, rash guards, gis, anything. Check out his stuff at epicrollbjj.com. Promo code is Jiu-Jitsu. Save 15% on the order, and get the hookup on some nice Jiu-Jitsu gear that you can use next time you're training, or some apparel that you can wear around. Also, thanks to Manscaped. Manscaped is the premier men's below the belt grooming. If you want to check them out, you can go to manscaped.com. Promo code is Jiu-Jitsu20. You save 20% on the order, and you get free shipping. It's a good deal. Again, everything that I've used from them has been high quality. The scents that they have on any of their products, from their colognes to their creams and everything else, are very, very, well, I say manly. I hate to say it that way, but like I've had some stuff sent to me before where it was like very florally and sweet. And for me, it's like I want something that sounds kind of clean.
I think they have like a body wash now or something.
Body wash, but it smells good.
Yeah,
it smells real good.
But we're gonna get I think we're gonna get some of the nose trimmers. I'm excited about that.
Oh, nose trimmers.
Yeah, we're gonna get a couple. We're gonna try those. I think it's called the Weed Whacker.
Now we're getting above the. See, this is where I think this is where they need to go, because it's like, again, they have the below the belt grooming, but they're just good grooming products. Like I use their trimmer.
Yeah,
their lawnmower. I use it on my beard and everything else all the time. For people like ask, like, how do I trim my beard? Well, my barber does it, and then on the off time, and like I just use the trimmer that I get from him.
Just shape it a little bit.
Yeah, just shape it up a little bit. We'll let you guys know how the Weed Whacker goes.
Yeah, I'm excited about it.
Yeah, well, it's that, isn't that such a weird thing? As you see, and this is like a problem that only old guys can talk about. Or I don't I don't know if women get a bunch of nose hair. So like old guys, we get nose hairs,
ear hair.
Well, like I get long ear hairs now, but like the nose hairs, like sometimes like there's a couple times where I've done videos and it's like I'll have to pluck them out, because when I'm doing the video, the nose hair will get long and it'll connect with my mustache hair, and it like starts tickling. So
it's all like one. But like everything's gonna be, your beard's gonna be connected to your chest hair, and then your shoulder hair, and then your back hair.
We lose hair from our top.
You haven't lost any. Your hair's perfect.
It's thinning a little bit.
Oh, stop it! I don't want to hear it.
It's thinning a little bit in the front,
dude. I can't even. I can't even.
But if you guys would like to check out any of their products, everything that I've used has been high quality. It's been really good. It's stood up to using it. And I also really like the smells and everything of all the products. So if you want to check them out, you can go to manscaped.com. And if you guys would like to join my Chew Crew newsletter, you can do that by going to chewjitsu.net/join. And upon joining, you will get 2 free ebooks. Now, the ebooks are, I think, pretty useful. I wrote them up some years ago, but they're useful. One book will get you the basics on how to basically make a game plan for your game. Very simple. It's like 3 pages. It's very short, but it'll show you my game plan, and it can line out how you can create your own. So if you think it would be a good idea to have a jiu-jitsu game plan, which I think it would be a good idea, something I take very seriously, something I take seriously with all the guys that compete, or even just training, you need to have one, then you can get it there. And then the second one is a drilling ebook. So again, drilling, as you'll hear about Brandon talk a little bit, drilling is important, both using or doing it, during reps and stuff like that. But also, to me, there's a certain way to do active drilling, which he talks about in this episode of the podcast, where he's focusing on a very particular position to win the national title. Well, I talk about how to do that in jiu-jitsu, because again, not everybody's going to be able to control their training. Sometimes you're just going to have to find a way to find some focus. So that ebook is called Focus Jiu-Jitsu, and it's just centered around some drilling strategies and also some ideas on how to be focused with your training. And again, you can get both of those by going to chewjitsu.net/join, JOIN. You can join that, and you get the ebooks, and you'll also get an email from me, usually Monday through Friday. And that's that. And then also, if you guys would like to join our Patreon, patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. By joining the Patreon, you'll get access to years worth of episodes, extras from the podcast with the different jiu-jitsu practitioners that we've spoken to, the different guests that we've had, with some sort of actionable tip. Along with that, you'll get access to videos such as rolls, narrated rolls where I'm breaking the ideas down. There's a warm-up video in there as well. Some different stuff in there, different content, but you can check that out at patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast and get access to that today. So with that said, guys, let's get started with the podcast. So how was wrestling? So we were talking. I told you to save it. So we were talking about it. So you just got back from training up in Illinois. How was wrestling?
It was really hard. I don't know. I guess I kind of got humbled a little bit, not in like the technique way. I felt like I was like there, if not just much better than like the people at my weight class that were there. It was just like the conditioning.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Just different.
Yeah. Like I needed literally another guy so I went there to go work with a specific guy at their RTC, which is like wrestlers have like our Division I schools usually have regional training centers, which is what I went to. So I went there to train with one guy, and like I was so tired like that during the second practice that they got a different guy to drill with a guy, and I just went live because
you saved your energy.
The drilling is so hard in wrestling, and I had completely forgot how hard it is. And like I was like, I'm good, whatever, I'm smooth, I can do this all day. 50 minutes later, we're still drilling. I'm like, oh my God, Like, how am I supposed to wrestle live after this?
Yeah. Well, and the thing about the wrestling drills is like, you know, you spend so much less energy when you're on the ground than you do when you're on your feet. Because you think about, like, I mean, you can still spend a lot of energy on the ground as well, but like when you're on your feet, basically doing ballistic movements and shots and reshots and everything else, everything's quick. It's like, it's just so exhausting. Whereas like you can do like good hard passing drilling and it'll wear you out, but it's nothing like doing like super fast shots going back and forth, and it's a different animal completely.
Yeah, it is. But I love jiu-jitsu and I'm happy I'm not wrestling anymore.
It's just different.
That was like one of those. So I'll like officially be going up there like about 6 days out of every month. I'll be going up there just to like be like a resident practice partner. Technically, they're going to pay me to do that, which is pretty awesome. It was a really good opportunity, and I'll get to improve my wrestling, which I still need to do, right, and get paid to do it. So I'll be going up there like 6 days out of the month after ADCC trials or ADCC, depending on, you know, what happens, I guess. And yeah, but like I don't want to wrestle more than 6 days out of the week. Like I realized that, like, I mean, I was a month because wrestling really does hurt.
It hurts, and it's if you're not conditioning for that thing all the time, it's just a different beast. You know, that's one thing. I mean, wrestling conditioning is just there's nothing really quite like it. You know, I mean, you know, even on like a minor scale. I mean, like I remember, and I've wrestled with like college wrestlers, and you know, you just realize from, you know, getting with them and even wrestling, rolling, whatever, they're just different. But even on like a minor scale, you go back to even as far back as like basic high school wrestling conditioning and compared to like football. I remember all the guys that wrestled and then played football, we could run circles around everybody else, because everybody else is like, you're like, dude, this is nothing. You know, like you know, you're just nothing compared to. And then you go into like say college level, it's even on a different level. It's nuts.
Yeah, it is crazy. And like the amazing thing too is it's like a Division I level school too, and the drilling was so clean. Like I'm not there in jiu-jitsu yet to where I can like really tell like about the little details, but like in wrestling, I'm there to where like even for me, it was probably, besides like wrestling with one of my good friends, Mason, like it was like one of the first times ever that like I got to drill like perfect. Like it was like me and another guy. This guy's like a 2-time high school national champ, and he's a world team member too, and he's in college right now, like a junior world team member, named Luke Leffman or whatever. And him drilling with me, it was like the first time. It was like two big dudes over like 240. The technique was just so clean. It was so beautiful, and it was fast too. So like it just felt like the intensity felt just super high, and I don't know, the training felt super intentional, which also I feel like made it much harder too.
Is there a lot of active, like, I mean, basically it's like back and forth, or is it one person? So
yeah,
not getting shots, not a lot of rest.
Yeah, zero. We did 50 minutes of no water breaks, no rest drilling, and then we got a 6-minute break between, like, so we did the drilling for 50 minutes, and then we got 6 minutes break, water, stretch out, you know, cool down a little bit, but not too much, and then we did matches. And so 6 minutes sounds like a lot, but by the time like the wrestling, it's like coming around, you're like, damn it, like that was it.
Well, and then the matches are a whole nother thing too, you know, because see, that's something I always thought was interesting. Like if you look at like, say, the time difference in jiu-jitsu, I think it's one of the worst things that they do in matches, where they increase times, where like, you know, you'll get to like 10, 20-minute matches or unlimited time limits, you know, and to me, it's a terrible idea, because it makes for really boring matches. Because again, you know, nobody has a gas tank to go 20 minutes like wide open, right? But like 6 or 7 minutes, you can go. Like a really good athlete, 6 or 7 minutes, you can just go. You look at wrestling matches, right? Like, you know, like a high school wrestling match is like 6 minutes.
2 minute
2-minute periods. Yeah. You get to like college and Olympics, they don't make it like 16 minutes, 20 minutes. No. Short. It's still short. It's still a relatively short. You just go faster in the time, right? And I think in a lot of jiu-jitsu matches, if you go to different like competitions and stuff, and if you watch some of like, there's a couple of organizations like the Abu Dhabi World Pro used to do, I think, 7-minute matches, and you'd watch them go, and they were fast paced because it's 7 minutes. You know, it means like if someone, and especially with points on the line, if someone scores,
better move.
You got to move. You're backed into a corner. There's not a lot of time to make it up, and everybody knows that they can go for a lot of time. So I think that's, and so that when you go do the matches now, you get done drilling and then you do matches. It's not like a slow, methodical jiu-jitsu match. It's like
so hard.
Whomp, you're just going.
It's like against, if you're in college, high school, it's a little bit different. Like high school kids aren't really, even the really good ones, there are some amazing ones, but there's just normal good ones aren't very good at hand fighting. So like hand fighting adds like that extra suck to the wrestling. Like my neck is destroyed right now and my lower back is destroyed right now because like I'm hand fighting with an amazing wrestler and he's hand fighting with an amazing wrestler, me, I think, and we're like basically punching each other in the back of the neck and we're like, I don't know, it was just like a war because he couldn't shoot on me half the time, I couldn't shoot on him half the time. So it's like, what are you going to do? You're going to hand fight, you're going to be super active,
basically just beating each other up.
Right, because guess what happens if you don't do that in wrestling? You get called for stalling. So like you can't just hang back and you can't sit on your butt, right? So it's, I don't know, it's like wrestling is meant to suck.
Well, wrestling is I remember hearing this said from some grapplers, the guys that had wrestled and done judo and jiu-jitsu and everything else. They were like, wrestling is like a fight without punches. I mean, like you're technically, I mean, sometimes you're, I mean, like you said, you're clubbing people and I mean, you're clubbing them hard, you know what I mean? Like you can get away with it. You can do it in jiu-jitsu too, but there's not the, you don't have the same incentive to constantly do it because, you know, like, I mean, even like when I compete, you know, if I grab someone by the neck, I mean, I'm literally forearming them as hard as I can in the back of the neck and then grabbing the neck with it, but I don't have to keep doing it because they don't fight as hard, like with a position. And then also like the rules don't, they're not nearly as stringent on the stalling calls.
Exactly.
You know, so you don't have to stay as active. You can like lock up and kind of tie up for a little bit longer. Is that more of a, is that like a bit of a, have the rules changed at all? Because I know that if you go back, you know, just a couple eras of wrestling back, you had a lot more guys, and I don't know if it's just the styles changing, because I'm like watching the newer wrestling and everybody's like super low and like, you know, touching and going, whereas like you'd watch the old ones, they'd lock up a lot more. What do you think that is?
I mean, the technique's evolving for sure, and it's like, you know, I'll compare jiu-jitsu, like how people wrestle in jiu-jitsu, to the old wrestling, versus now. Like if you want to score against me, like in a true takedown situation, you're gonna have to use good hand fighting, good setups. You're gonna have to be low, and you're gonna be faking and moving. And like anyone who's like a halfway decent wrestler, you're gonna have to do that. You're gonna have to be low. You're gonna have a good hand fight. You're gonna have to have good fakes. Versus like, no offense to the guys like back in the day, they were amazing wrestlers, but a lot of times like your stance doesn't have to be as disciplined. You don't, the technique is not evolved as much. So where like you don't need crazy great stance or crazy great setups to shoot in and attack people with like the old wrestling, or even in jiu-jitsu, you don't need to be in a great wrestling stance, because like I don't need to do 5 different, you know, touches on this guy's shoulders and 6 different fakes to take someone down in jiu-jitsu. Although I will say taking people down in jiu-jitsu is much harder in like certain rule sets, like ADCC. It's confusing. I started watching a ton of it, and it's like, it's not as easy to take people down as you think. I learned, because there's a lot more risk involved in taking people down. Well, there's submissions and things like that. And so it's like, you can't be an idiot when you're trying to take people down in jiu-jitsu. No, you have to be intentional about it, because you can land yourself right into a submission, or even guys that know how to do like counter sweeps and things like that. Like you can pop them over. Yeah, like you can't sweep people in wrestling. I guess you could, but it would be, but you'd be giving back exposure. Like you couldn't do it. You know, your back would be exposed. Right. So it wouldn't make much sense. Yeah. So that's all that I would say. Like on the contrary, I don't down jiu-jitsu's wrestling. Just different. Because it's just as good. It's just good for itself. Well, it's like if you look at I remember like watching guys do I remember it was one of the Schultz brothers back in the day. He would do a Kimura. So the guy would get a single leg and he would get a Kimura and he would rip the shoulder back and they would roll, and he would typically eventually he'd get called for unnecessary roughness and stuff like that. It's super illegal now. Yeah, it's super illegal, but he was using the Kimura, you know, double wrist lock, right? And you see there's so many moves that you see in like both arts, they just use them differently because the points and the points and the rules and like the purpose of everything is different. So, you know, you look at people and there's like tons of stuff that people use, like from one grappling art to the next, and I mean they're both effective. I think a lot of times, like when I look at it, jiu-jitsu wrestling, a lot of times because of the connection, I feel like jiu-jitsu, a lot of times you see more stuff like traditional folk style wrestling. It seems to translate pretty well because there's always this constant connection, whereas like in freestyle there's a
There can be a lot more space. And again, you're basically just trying to get those back points and everything else, where the, I feel like in like old folk style, you're trying to break the person down and stay attached to them the whole time, which is more to me, it feels more like jiu-jitsu.
I think folk style is way more applicable to jiu-jitsu than freestyle. I mean, of course, like one of the things I like, because I've been studying a lot lately, because we're gonna do like ADCC trials and stuff like that, is how do I make my takedowns the most effective against jiu-jitsu guys. And in freestyle, they do that a little bit better than folk style, because they go leg to body. Versus in folk style, it's more leg down, try to chase hips and stuff. But there's lots of, I'm shooting into a leg, they pull me up or something, and I'm doing body lock finishes and stuff like that, which I'm starting to feel is a lot more effective when I'm wrestling guys and I'm doing jiu-jitsu, because it's like lots of the little cool finishes you can do in wrestling against other wrestlers are not very effective against jiu-jitsu guys, because they can just go to their back. So like, I don't want to stay down on a single leg trying to chase the corner behind them. By the time I'm doing that, they're already sitting down on their butt trying to sweep me. Something versus like, I shoot a single leg, they get a wizard, and I come up to a body lock, and then I can just launch you. And now we're in side control or something, which is kind of what I've been shooting for, is like, you know, whatever. Can't tell all my secrets. But like, basically, like, yeah, freestyle I think is better in that like aspect of like, your takedowns have to be a little bit more clean. And then folk style is just like when you're actually on top, like understanding how to apply pressure and even use your hips and stuff. And then like we talked about, like there's like positions like the crab ride or like riding legs and stuff, where it's like, I know how to be sticky, but it's also a little different, because lots of the times like the stuff you do on top of wrestling, like you might cross your legs or stuff, get you in trouble in jiu-jitsu.
What's been like your most difficult transition or adjustment from wrestling to jiu-jitsu? I mean, obviously, like the whole point is not to have your back on the mat. I mean, that's obvious, but like, is there been one aspect of training that's just been really difficult for you to kind of transition?
Yeah, this one's like weird, because I get caught in it. Like I've been caught like a lot, is like, whenever I take people down, I'm keeping my arms too extended. So like I take them down, which is perfectly fine, but then like I get caught having my arms just out everywhere. Or even like if I'm on bottom, like Chewy will sweep me and kill me. And then like, but like it kills me a lot, because my arms, like I'm trying to fight like with my hands instead of bringing them down.
Bringing them in.
Yeah, because I don't know, like in wrestling, like my goal is going to be bridge, get off my back. Like I'm not used to have to be like here, and then let me start working like little stuff like that. I'm more used to just like, if someone's putting me on my back, I'm pushing them off and I'm going. But like I'm getting caught in a lot of stuff. Or like I said, like I'm getting caught after I take people down, like not really with chokes, but more like, I don't know, Kimura's most like is like a big one. Is like I'm staying too extended when I'm trying to pass and stuff, because I feel like I'm good if I just hold my hand here and here and walk around, but it's been getting me in trouble a little bit in practice. So it's just exposing myself.
Yeah, you're not really having trouble with the back stuff, because I noticed like that was one thing a few of the guys have commented about, like, because you know you're a freaking stud wrestler, and so you can take anybody down in the gym, but like a lot of times, like guys are saying, man, Brandon friggin' pull guard and ankle locked me like 3 times yesterday, or that kind of thing, you know. So you know you're actively trying to work that, and you know, which is smart, because that's usually like the biggest hang up for most. I was actually talking to one of the guys about this, because like one of the things it's tough for a lot of guys that wrestle that come into jiu-jitsu is they're too clingy, too needy to hang on to that identity that they used to have. Like, I'm the wrestler. It's like, we're doing jiu-jitsu now, you know, like, so you can have good takedowns, but you're a jiu-jitsu practitioner now. Now you have to figure out how to play from the bottom. I was bad about this, and it really holds a lot of people back, because you know, it's like, I think Jordan Peterson said that, you know, and I think he may have quoted someone saying that, but it's a good idea, which is, you know, to be the master, you got to be the fool first. And so like, you know, you've got to be willing to set that aside and say, all right, I'm going to play this thing that I suck at, and I'm going to be terrible at it, but I'm going to do it anyway. And I think that maybe, I don't know if it comes from it, but, you know, you're a 3-time national champion in your collegiate league. So like, no matter what, that's always there. That's always there. So like there's I think that sometimes once people have reached a certain level of something accomplishment, it's very easy to say, well, you know, I've already done that. No one can take that away from me. So now I can go over here and I can just screw around a little bit. And I feel like it makes it a little bit easier, because I feel like a lot of times what happens for a lot of younger guys that come into the gym is that they come in and they're a bit insecure. And as soon as they get something that works, they just cling to it, and they don't want to let go and do anything else. They just want to stick there, and it really hurts them long term, because their game doesn't evolve or doesn't change because they're not really doing anything new.
Yeah, just it's because, you know, I love Jocko so much. So like, it's so weird. Like I literally believe in like the whole term like subordinating your ego. So like when I'm doing jiu-jitsu, you know, like my stepdad, the guy who like adopted me, I guess we'll talk about that later. It's,
sure.
Like he had done jiu-jitsu forever. So like I knew him. Well, he did MMA and jiu-jitsu like along with it. So like I had known that like I wanted to do jiu-jitsu and stuff like that. And he had always like had it in my head like wrestling is not jiu-jitsu, jiu-jitsu is not wrestling. You know, like he choked me out all the time in practice for fun just to be like hilarious. And it was just cool. Like, so like I know like, but like by him doing that, it like made me be like interested in jiu-jitsu. Like that's one of the big reasons that I did and I am doing jiu-jitsu is because he like exposed it to me early. Like, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. Like that's interesting. It's a different game. Like I don't really have to, like, no matter who joins, like I feel like I'm gonna forever be like while I'm competing the best wrestler who's doing jiu-jitsu. That might not be completely true, but that's my mindset on it.
Right.
And it's like maybe when I go to Illinois or do other wrestling trips, I'll practice wrestling. But like when I'm doing jiu-jitsu, like I really want to get good at the game. That way, if I do run into someone who's much better than me at wrestling, which might and probably will happen one day, then I have my jiu-jitsu to take them out with.
Yeah.
You know,
or even having some like good guy who sweeps you.
Yeah.
And this way you can fire back and you have something to do the other, you know, instead of being like, you
yeah,
know?
Yeah. You're like, all right, let me put my hands on your chest and bridge. Like, yeah.
So, man, let's talk about that. So let's kind of go back a little bit. We always kind of do that. We jump in, but how did you get started in wrestling? Because obviously that's how you got started with grappling. How did you get your start in wrestling?
So I just graduated 8th grade, and during the summer, I was.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
I've seen your early high school pictures. You were big as a house already.
Yeah.
How big were you in 8th grade?
I was like 265, 270, just about.
Were you like fat?
Yeah, I was pretty tubby.
Were you tubby? Okay.
I was a big boy.
Right.
I'd played soccer when I was in like elementary school. I was a goalie for 1 year. So, you know, me and Eugene, we got those soccer backgrounds.
Yeah, we do a little bit.
But other than that, like I never really played any sports. And so, yeah, I was a big just turd basically. And so I tried out for the football team during that summer. So I graduated 8th grade, got into my school, Iroquois, and then was like, okay, I'm going to try football. Literally did not know anything about football. And I went to the little tryouts that they had. So they have like a 1 week tryout. I don't know if they still do this, but basically a bunch of guys will go out. They'll like have you work out, and then they'll like basically either sit you on the bench and make you watch like the older players like kind of practice, or you'll kind of, I guess if you have experience, you'll practice. But obviously I had no experience. So I just sat down on the bench for like 3 or 4 days, just being like, what the heck? Like, why am I not like playing football? I don't know anything about football, and I didn't then, and I still don't, because, you know, I just was trying it just to try it.
Yeah.
And the defensive coordinator, Gary Cole, was like, yo, you're not going to play football most likely. And I was like, yeah, you're right. He was like, but I'm the head wrestling coach. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. And he was like, you're a little bit fat, aren't you? And I was like, yeah.
Would you like to not be so fat?
Yeah.
Try wrestling.
Yeah. And I was like, man, you know, I kind of am. And he was like, well, you should join wrestling, you know, like WWE, like tables, ladders, and chairs. And I'm just like, now that I look back at it, he really did hook me with that. I was just like, he tricked me. He had mind control.
That's so funny.
That same thing. So I signed up for my wrestling. So I didn't say that. I played football. I didn't know anything really about it beforehand, but I got into it. I played a little bit, but I still was never great at it. But I remember wrestling. They had the wrestling signups. My freshman year, I went to sign up for wrestling because I thought, like, Hulk Hogan, right? You know, The Rock, everything else. I'm thinking about wrestling. Just that's what I think about wrestling. That I signed up, and I was too chicken shit to do it the first year. And then some football guys pulled me over afterwards and made me do it the next year. So you got hooked with table, ladders, and chairs.
And I went to my first wrestling practice the next day. Obviously, we didn't have real practice at that moment. It was conditioning because, you know,
not allowed to practice.
Not allowed to practice technically. But we went, and we all just hung out in the wrestling room, the little dungeon that we had at Iroquois. And then Coach Cole came in, and he was like, all right, guys, it's the first day of practice. Hope you guys all brought your running shoes, which he had told us to like previously. And then we went and did this thing called just stairs, which literally means we ran stairs. But it was like super humid. So we had it was like 2-story stairs. and like he would shut the doors, and then he would take towels and put them under like where like the thing would be. So like he was like, we're not gonna stop running until the walls are sweating.
My coach did the same stuff.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's like a booklet out somewhere, because that was what they used to always do to us. Was like we'd run to the wall, sweat, and he would like touch the wall and be like, it's not wet enough.
Literally. It's that was exactly, that's hilarious that happened to you too. But yeah, so he was like, we're gonna run into the wall, sweat, and then so we did that. We ran to the wall, sweat, and then we got back, and then we started every single day. We would do like these same like core workouts. It was like the hammy drops. We would do like 200 of those. So we practiced 3 days a week. Yeah, it was.
I bet it
was horrible.
You were so sore the first time.
Yeah, I almost cried. All right, we did hammy drops, and then we did like plate like crunch presses. So like. But now that I look back at it, completely overtraining, completely bad. But you know, high school coaching. You know what
I mean? You know, even sometimes overtraining, like sometimes, you know, maybe they could have eased into it, but overtraining, I feel like, especially when you're younger, it has a purpose of at least making you tough,
right?
Because it's like most people have never overtrained in their life. Like, you know, most of them they're like, I'll get messages from people like, am I overtraining if I'm training jiu-jitsu and then lifting? Like, no, you're not. Like, trust me, you're fine. Like, you know, overtraining is really hard to get to, and most people have never been to that point, and never been to the point of like exhaustion to where they really, you know, because you don't know if you've overdone it unless you've gotten to that point at some point.
Yeah. I would just laugh if a jiu-jitsu person told me they'd overtrained. Like, it would have to be really, really, really hard for me, to be honest, because like once you've like wrestled in college, you're just like, do people even know what overtraining is?
Well, and it was like, unless they were doing some crazy stuff off the mat, right. And if they were like really, really out of shape and had like, you know, because if you're in moderately decent shape, you'll be okay.
Yeah. So relative to the shape that you're in. If it's me and another guy who are both in pretty decent shape and they're saying they're overtraining, I'm gonna be like, you've never been there.
I wonder if they did that like just to like see if anybody would break.
They did.
Right? Like to see like who would stick around or not. Like see if anybody was tough. Like even though it was like miserable, if you were able to kind of just withstand it, even though it's like out of the season, you're not really doing specific wrestling. I mean, you're doing like core work, which is not necessarily specific wrestling drills, but just it's probably not fun. It's probably pretty miserable as well.
Yeah.
So
it was. I think so, because I mean, if you've ever seen like a wrestling team, and I'm sure like with all sports, like at the very beginning of the season, there's 30 or 40 guys. Same with us. We had like 30 guys.
Yeah.
And then by the time those like 6 weeks of like conditioning are over, you have 10.
Yeah.
And then after the first 2 weeks of wrestling season are over, you have like 5.
Oh man, you guys are hurting. 5, geez.
But out of the 5 of us, 4 of us were state placers, like became state placers. So like we so it was like we had like a good core group, and I think it was, you know, like the area that we're from or whatever. I think like it's like kids who've never really done anything very, very disciplined, not to their own fault or whatever, but just culture. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so of course.
And people just don't like to be bossed around and stuff. So
yeah, there's something about that, like, you know, like you said, from the areas where we kind of grew up, because I didn't live very far from Iroquois. Like you know, a lot of times you have, if they've never been around like a strong male figure, right, they don't know how to respect discipline. A lot of times they, you know, I mean, especially for young men, it's so crucial for us to have like a strong male figure to like kind of keep us in line. You know, like, so having a strong male figure, then being able to accept authority and be all right with it, having people boss you around and not take it personally, like just like this is just what we're doing, and understanding it's like they care about me, that's why they're doing this.
Yeah,
but you know, not taking it the wrong way, because I remember we would have the same thing. We would have guys that would come in, and some of the guys really just did not like being barked at and pushed, and you know, they would like snap or whatever, and you know, they would see it. And then the other ones that the ones that just put their nose down at the grinder, that they did better.
Very few of them though. That's like the problem, and that's why it's like we had lots of amazing athletes. Like our football team was very good at the time that I was in high school. Like they were always like 11-1 or 12-2, something like ridiculous football team, and that's who most of the guys would come in would be, and they'd all just leave. Like by the end of conditioning, which half of them didn't even show up to get conditioning because it's football season at the same time too. Or by the end of like the first 2 or 3 weeks of just wrestling, they're just like, I'm out of here. And like the ones who would stay, because you would always have like your tweeners who would like, you know, I said we had like those 5 guys. You'd have like 2 or 3 guys who like are there one week and who are not there the next week, and who are back and forth because it's high school and the coaches aren't like, I have a scholarship over your head, you know, and coach are basically just trying to get whoever they can to fill the lineup. So we had a couple of guys like that, but like most of them just didn't respect authority. And honestly, the work was very uncomfortable, like the workload of wrestling.
Well, also the modeling, you know, so a lot of times guys look up to people, right? Like, and, you know, football and basketball, it's easier to find people to look up to because they're much more popular sports. They're much more lucrative sports monetarily. And so people just look at those sports like, oh man, that's amazing, you know, whatever. So it's a little bit easier rather than, all right, so you're going to put me in this like onesie, this spandex onesie, and my balls are going to be shown everywhere. and well, yeah, right. And you're going to make me wrestle another dude. Like, and you know, to look at it, I mean, it's one of those things where when you would look at it the first time, you're like, this is kind of weird. You know, like I remember like a lot of the dudes would look at it, oh, this is strange or whatever. And all the you know, basketball players would make fun of us sometimes, you know, until like one of us like slammed one of them, you know. But like, I remember, you know, they make fun of. They're like, check this out,
check this out, bro, head to neck, or neck and head to the ground.
So why did you keep showing up? Like, if you're doing this thing that's like, you're out of shape, first of all, it's miserable. It's kind of wrestling, but it really isn't, because you're doing these like drills. You're not really wrestling. You're just kind of getting, you know, almost tortured a little bit, you know, doing that stuff. Why did you keep coming back?
I mean, there's like two big reasons. Like, the number one reason was I made friends. So like, I was a freshman in high school and I was really awkward and I didn't have any friends. I was a really quiet kid, like, honestly, growing up, which might be surprising now that you guys know me.
Bit. Nah, it's not surprising.
Yeah, but you know, like, so I made my friends like Ansar and Samim. They're both Russians, and they were like the team captains. You know, shout out to Russia. And they were just like the hilarious, just guys like, Brandon, you're fat, but you will be small one day. Like, we were like, you come to practice every day, we make you small.
Did they have like a thick Russian accent?
He's super thick.
That's awesome.
Samim, the guy, he actually trains at Core Boxing.
Cool.
Yeah, he's been there for like a few months. But yeah, it's funny. It was basically those guys, but like they became like my best friends and kind of like my first mentors, really, like not even my coach that at the time, like he was an awesome guy, but like really my team captains. And then like the second reason was like, you know, after the first week, I probably lost 5 pounds. And then the second week came and I was losing like another 5. And then the third week came, maybe
I'm not fat anymore. This is awesome.
Yeah. So like slowly I started to be like, damn, like I'm starting to look a little good. And I was like, I kind of like this. Like I kind of started to feel better about myself. Like I remember like my biggest insecurity was taking my shirt off. Used to be a ginormous insecurity. Obviously, as you know, now I don't mind too much. But before, like it used to kill me. And then like slowly I would be like, man, like my clothes aren't fitting anymore. Like I'm getting smaller. And I was just loving it. I don't know, the support I was getting from Ansar and Samim, my team captains, and then like me losing the weight was just like, this is like, I'm starting to build confidence and starting to like figure out who like I am in like the big world of high school. Cause you know, that first year of high school is scary. You're just like, I got to get a group, you know,
gotta find a place to belong.
Yeah, exactly. And so wrestling gave me like that place to belong. So I guess that's 3 reasons. Like made those friends and like kind of my first mentors, lost weight and like found somewhere where I belonged. And even though it sucked, it was a lot better than not having.
I agree.
Yeah. It's a deep answer.
So you kept so that was like in the fall, and then wrestling's like in the winter time, right? So
it was
then
in the fall.
Went right into wrestling, and then what was it like wrestling? Like actually starting to do this,
it was so cool. I do remember that pretty well. It wasn't as hard at first because obviously no one knew anything. So like they actually had to teach us. Like I do privates now, you know, at the gym or whatever. And so one of the things I teach kids is what we first learned, and we did this almost every single day, heel toe knee. Like we did this like this, to learn how to do shots or whatever, heel toe knee. That was like our first 3 weeks. Doing heel toe knee, doing like just like little weird wrestling drills. Like I forget what the name is, but you shoot between the person's legs and you jump off their back. Like
we call those leapfrogs.
Yeah,
so you shoot through and then hop over.
You do leapfrogs, or you do like buddy carries or wheelbarrows and stuff like. So you're like, now you're starting to do. I don't know if it's wrestling specific, but I guess it's kind of wrestling specific conditioning. And then you're starting to learn how to take shots. And I was like, man, this is freaking cool, dude. And then I remember my favorite shot when I first learned was the double leg, like the blast double. And we learned that probably 3 or 4 weeks into like the actual, like we're allowed to practice thing. Cause not everyone at this time knew how to actually take a full shot. And then once I started double legging people, I was like, man, this is really awesome. Like I love this. And I wasn't no good that first year, but like me just learning how to kind of like handle some people made me feel good. Like I was like, man, I got power. Like this is a new power. And that just really kept me in it. And then I realized like I was just like, I want to learn. Like, and I feel like maybe that's part of like my personality. I believe in like those personality like test things pretty well. It's like maybe my personality is just a guy who just really, really likes to like learn details and stuff. And wrestling has so many little ones that made me go, I like this. I want to stick with this.
Did you wrestle varsity your first year? Or were you JV?
JV.
Okay.
100% of the time.
I wasn't sure if they had another guy in your spot, in the heavyweight spot.
They did. So yeah, they had one other guy. And he was just a senior. He beat the crap out of me, but he wasn't no good either, to be honest.
Yeah.
But he was much better.
He's better than you.
Yeah,
he was better than you.
He was much better than me. But I got to wrestle a lot though. Like honestly, I mean, I went 4-14 my first season.
What was your first match like?
My first match, I wrestled this guy named Garrett Chandler, state champ in Kentucky, 2015, and this guy, or 2016, yeah, this guy, he pinned me in about 30 seconds. But I remember he like took me down like 5 times before he decided to pin me. I was like,
just toying with you.
You jerk.
Yeah.
You freaking jerk. I ended up beating him though, my junior year of high school.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. But he actually ended up beating me again, like after that. But it was like overtime.
Yeah.
But that was my very first match, was like against someone who ended up becoming like one of my rivals in high school. But yeah, he smashed me. It sucked so bad. Like I don't know. I felt super embarrassed, to be honest. Yeah, but then like my coach was like, "Who cares?" And I was like, "Oh, okay, that's cool. You don't care. I don't care either. All right, we're good."
How nervous were you like for that first match?
Shaking. Like I was like, like about to pee my like like I don't know. If I get really nervous, and it really doesn't happen too often anymore, but I'm sure it will again, is like I have to go use the bathroom like a lot. Yeah. Like for sure. I'm just like I gotta go use the bathroom.
Jiu-Jitsu tournament bathrooms are like some of the grossest places you ever want to be.
Yeah.
It's just everybody's like going in and out, and
it's the nervous poops.
The battle craps.
Yeah, the battle craps.
It's destruction. Those toilets are ruined after.
Yeah. So I had the battle craps for sure.
Like, I mean, I still get them to this day. If I'm getting ready to compete, like even when I walk into the room, I walk into like the place where the matches are, I'm like, it's like I can smell it in the air.
Smell the
like,
intensity.
All right, I gotta go bathroom. Well, I've heard that like our sweat, like someone told me, and I don't know this for sure, but they said like, for instance, like when we are more stressed out and like our adrenaline's pumping, we release like we release things like ammonia at a different whatever. And he was like, if you ever smell your gi after a really hard competition day or something, he's like, it smells different than it does normally. And it's true. Now I don't know if it's because of the other person or whatever, but there is something to that. No, you're telling me you're going through all your wrestling stuff, and I'm like, I'm reminiscing with you.
Yeah,
with my own, like,
same. Yeah,
because I remember I got smoked my first match. The dude was like a senior, and my coach was building me up. Man, you got this. You got this. He knew I didn't have this.
Yeah,
put me in there. And that dude, like, I remember it's almost like he looked at me and he like smacked me on the head, and I just like flopped over my back and like just like a cockroach and got pinned.
Iron squirrel.
I was just I was meant to do jiu-jitsu. I love being on my back.
Yeah, I guess me too. Clearly, I'm pretty sure out of those 14 losses, I think like 13 of them were me getting pinned by someone. And the 4 wins, I think I beat the same guy from Eastern High School 3 times. And so, yeah, and one guy from Fairdale, by the way. So Fairdale, I win. But yeah, it was rough. I swear I hate the coach's false confidence in me. Like that happened to me too. Like my coach would be like, Brandon, you got this. No, this guy's like a 3-time state place. He's like, Brandon, you got it. You smack him on the head, you hit him with the double leg. This guy's wrestled for 10 years. I wrestled for like 3 weeks. You're like, you're gonna beat him.
You got this.
But like, what do you say, right? Like, you can't say you're gonna get smashed, dude. Go and stand in front of this train because it's about to go. You're about to get hit by it,
dude.
I don't know.
But my coach got me one time. So there was this dude. This is so funny. So I was JV my first year wrestling, and we had this guy named Big John. And Big John was this big, swole black guy, right? And he was just a giant dude. And like we would do wrestle offs, and he would just throw me all around everywhere. I'm like I would do my wrestle offs because it was like I'm supposed to do it, but it was just like I'm gonna get creamed.
It's ceremony.
But then I remember the coach told me that he's like he's messing with me the whole time. So Big John had this sort of rivalry with this other dude from sales, and they were both big dudes. They'd lock up with each other, and they would be like going, and then someone would get a big throw and win. They'd go
all
back
lat drops.
All lat drops. And so you know me, I'm a portly little 215 pounder, you know, like, and coach was like telling me, he goes, and he called me Tugboat back then. He's like, Tugboat. He's like, you're going to be in on this match, because I was wheezing so bad my first match. And I was like, Tugboat. So he's like, Tugboat, you're going to be in against, I forgot what the guy's name was. He's like, I'm taking you out, and you're going to go up against him. And I'm looking at him, and I'm like, you sure, coach? And he's like, I'm sure, you know. And he's like, John's he's like, you got this. He's like, John's the Black Thunder, you're the White Lightning. You got this, you know? And I'm like, okay, coach. So we had a dual meet. So it was like us and 2 other schools at our school. So like getting ready, and like I'm getting pumped up. Like I think I'm getting ready to go for this dude. And then like I'm getting warmed up, and I come up to coach. Coach, I'm ready to go. He's like, I'm not putting you in there. Like he's like you'll get killed. You know, like he's like, you're gonna go against the kid from Wagner.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, and I was like, okay, yeah, okay. And then I like walked away, and I was like, thank God.
Yeah. It's like, oh, thank you. Like, I don't have to wrestle.
Yeah, I don't have to wrestle that monster.
Yeah, that happened to me a lot in high school. Like I can't lie, like I had some little weak thoughts in my head. Like even my second year of wrestling, like I ended up doing pretty well that year. Mm-hmm. Like I placed second in state, but I still like remember like there would be some matches where I'd be like, oh man, I'm so thankful. Like, man, you know, my hip hurts a little bit today, coach. I don't really want to. I would say that's like the biggest difference between like me that second year to like me my third, fourth, fifth year. But like even when I got pretty decent, I was just like, man, do I really like I'm pretty good, but like, do I really want to like wrestle someone who's good? Like, not really. Like at that time.
But I think that's part of like even me. Like it's like thinking about matches sometimes. Like I'll have like even like in jiu-jitsu, I'll have some matches, and I'll have like guys like, I'm like, man, this is a tough dude. Like there was one guy I went against at Chicago a couple of years ago, and the dude's good. Like I think he just took second at Pans, or maybe took first at Pans, and he's won a ton of stuff. And I remember I looked him up in video and stuff. I was like, oh, he's good. He's tough. He just won the American Nationals and all this stuff. And at the same time, I was like, man, this is gonna be a tough match. And I'm going through it in my head, but it's like at the same time, it's like once I'm out there, it's like it's gone. You know, it's just like it's like you still deal with them because you know it's gonna be a tough ass match. And sometimes I'm like, I'm happy I had them afterwards, because I'm like, I'm dreading the tough match because I know it's gonna be a brutal one. But then afterwards, when you're done with it and like you look back and you get to see your work, you're like, that was a badass match. I'm glad I did that.
Yeah, I feel that. I don't get nervous for anything anymore. I have like the same mindset right now that I had when I wrestled. Like even when I did that little local jiu-jitsu tournament, I'm like, fuck this guy. Like I'm more than this. So it's like the two things, and thanks to McKenna again, I'd just be like, fuck this guy. I'm more than this moment. And it's like, do my 10 deep breaths, and like, I'm just ready to kill. Like I can't remember the last time I got nervous, I guess. Probably years ago.
I'm not nervous. It's like, sometimes it's just like, almost like, this is going to be a fight. You know what I mean? I know. But like, because nervous, like I'm now, it's like.
You respect the guy, kind of.
You respect the guy. I get excited now. Now it's like, let's go have some fun and let's see what happens. You know?
I don't with either one. I don't respect them, and I don't get excited. Like it sounds really weird and corny, but like I genuinely am just like, I hate you. Like when I'm going to go against someone, even if it's like me and you in a tournament, like if we face each other, and you know, one day I'm going to submit you in a tournament. But like, you know, for right now, it's like for me, I'm just like, I don't give a, you know, it's okay if I cuss. So I'm just like, I don't give a fuck who my opponent is. I don't want to know their name. I don't care about them. Like he could be a 10-time ADCC champion, and he's probably going to beat me. Like, and I'm not stupid, but I'm also just like, fuck you. Like, I'm about to take you out. Like, and that's like my mindset. So I don't get excited. I don't get nervous. I don't ask about credentials. If I know their credentials, I don't give a fuck about them. I'm like, oh, ADCC champ, fuck him. Like, who cares? And it sounds like really crazy, but like in college, like you wrestle so many guys who've done A, B, C, D, E, F, G. You know what I mean? Like this guy's like the guy I wrestled this year was like a 3-time high school national champion. And I placed 7th at high school nationals. You know what I mean? Or he was like another guy was like my second national championship. The dude was a Division I transfer. And it's like,
who are you right now? That's what matters. Not like, what you've done. It's
like, fucking sucks. You're not Brandon Reed. Like, and it sounds weird. So like before every match, I get like that. I'm a little bit mean, to be honest. And
you got to be.
Yeah.
You got to be mean when you're competing. I mean, you got to be mean like if you're fighting and competing. And, you know, for some people that might sound like, wow, that sounds egotistical, Brandon. But it really, the reality is you have to like have that. Because like for me, for instance, whenever I compete, I'll think about it. I'm like, how, like, you know, in my head, I'm going through the same, like, who beats me, like, when I'm training? Like, if it's Muhammad Ali, if it's JT Torres, or some really high level guy, they can beat me. I haven't rolled with any guy that's in my divisions or whatever that's like just stomped me. Like, I've lost my points and stuff, but like stomped me hasn't happened in a long
You've never been
time.
outclassed.
Not outclassed. I've never felt like, well, and then even when I go to like most gyms, I can like roll with lots of black belts and feel like I'm in a very easy pace for me. You know, but it's not about like necessarily ego thing. It's about it's understanding this too, is we use that idea of leave your ego at the door in jiu-jitsu, but we use that idea wrong, because an ego is simply your self-construction. And like you said earlier, subordinated. It's a tool. Like, the reason why I know to put this water in my mouth instead of yours is because I have an ego. I know who I am. And so it's good to know who you are and really know what you're capable of, because most people undersell themselves grossly. And so to know that you're a bad dude, it's good to know that, because when you go to compete or fight, you've got to be able to like know that you got to step in there and say, I can win this stuff. Because if you go in there, oh, well, I don't know, let's see what happens, whatever. If you don't believe you can do anything, you know, if you don't attack your techniques with like a deep resolve that like, I can smash this dude, I'm going to double leg this dude through the wall, right? And know that you can do it. If you don't believe you can do this, it's probably not going to happen.
Exactly.
You know?
And it's okay to lose. Like even though like I had that mindset, like I said, like there is that big point that I literally say it every time before I do my match, I'm more than this moment. That means I'm more than if I win or lose this.
Sure.
But because I know I'm more than that moment, like I feel like I'm really good at like just letting loose in matches. I mean, I haven't done too much jiu-jitsu matches, but like in wrestling, at least, like I know I'm really good at just opening up and attacking. And I think that's why I always have really high scoring matches, is because I just get the fuck after it and I take risks.
Because you're not what ifing yourself.
No, because I'm confident if he takes me down, I'm gonna be able to take him down twice. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, like my mindset is, my ego might seem pretty big, or like what people can think about when they think ego. Like I might seem like cocky or I think an asshole, or like I don't know, whatever someone would take like my whole like fuck you mindset to those guys. It might be that, but it's not like, I don't say it because I think I'm going to beat everybody, but I say it because I think I can beat everybody.
Sure.
You know, if that makes sense.
No, it does. And because you understand that, like, it's useful, because then it's one of those things where it's useful because then it allows you to like, because a lot of times like the what ifing, the neediness of it, you know, like where you're basically, what if this happens? What if that's like needy behavior? You know, it's like you talking, hey man, let's go do this thing. Well, what if this happens? We're just going to go do this thing. Right. That it comes from a place of insecurity in who you are. Right. If you don't think that you can take care of yourself when you're out there, you're going to what if yourself. But if you're like, I got this, whatever happens, I got this. That gets rid of the needy behavior. And if you don't win, who gives a shit? But the only way that you're going to win and really show your best is if you don't care. Right. You know what I mean? It's just the way it is. And the only way you're going to perform your best is if you can turn that what if and that neediness off and just let yourself go.
That 100%.
Was that the difference? Like, do you think in high school, like, you know, you said a really, really rough freshman year and then sophomore year got better. And then like, what was kind of the difference? How did you realize like, man, I'm really good at this? And besides winning, but like, what was it that brought that along? And then going to college and actually doing what you did in college, like how did that whole process come along?
So yeah, like in high school, I had like that, like the opposite mindset, like the mindset, like, so I said I lost to that kid, Garrett. He beat me my very first wrestling match, and then I beat him, and then he beat me again at state. And that was because I was like, I was super nervous. I was respecting him so much. I did not open up at all. Like I was really good at attacking, even in high school, but that match I shot once. That's not like me. And I lost the match because I shot once and he rode me out on top with legs. And yeah, so after I lost, that's when I like met McKenna, the guy, like my stepdad, adopted dad. I don't know what you guys want to call him. But
how did you meet him?
Well, he became my wrestling coach. So like he became my wrestling coach because my old coach got fired, or it was like some politics were going on down there. I think he said something that just offended somebody. And then, yeah, it was kind of BS, to be honest.
Our old wrestling coach, like I was thinking about that, like our old wrestling coach back in like the early 2000s, he said so much stuff that was like, would not be okay now.
Yeah, that's basically what happened. Like I never got like the full details, but like I've talked to that guy, like my old coach before, and it was basically like, it was a little bit political. Like I said A and B, and then they were like, you need to like apologize, basically stuff. And then he was like, no, Like, that's stupid. Like, and you know, maybe it was something crazy, but no, it was just locker room like talk stuff. But anyways, McKenna got hired the year that I was like a junior or whatever. So I finished second at state, and then McKenna came, and then that's when I met him. And so, you know, it was just a basic like coach student relationship at first, but then I think like 1 or 2 weeks into the season, he noticed me walking home. So I lived about 2.5 miles from Iroquois High School. And every single day I walked home. So like I would practice, you know, 2:30 to like 5, maybe 5:30. After that, I would shower. So it'd be 6, and then 6 to, I don't know, 7. Basically, I would go. That would be the time that I'm traveling to get home. And I think like one day, and he could probably clear this up, but one day he like saw me walking, and he just picked me up, and he was like, "What are you doing? Are you stupid? It's 7, it's like 6:30, 7 o'clock, and you're walking around Iroquois."
Well, and it's the winter time too, so it's black. It's like, you know, it's black as it gets nighttime, like at 4:30 or something.
Right. And then I was just like, I was like, I can't drive. Like, I don't know how to drive. And I'm 17 at this time. And it's like, I can't afford a car either, because, you know, I have a single mom. She has 4 kids. And it's like, and he was like, "That's stupid. I need to teach you how to drive." I was like, "Oh, okay." It's like, it was cool. Like, I was like, okay. He was like, "Do you have your permit?" I was like, "No." He was like, "That's stupid. Let's get your permit." And I was like, "All right." And I was like, that's kind of how it started. And he like started, so he would start driving me home, and then start like taking me to his house with his like baby mama. That's a weird term, because they weren't married or anything, but like literally
his lady.
His lady. He would take me home to his lady or whatever, and like she was really cool too, and like we would all just eat. So I'd eat dinner with him a ton, and then that just kept happening. And then like he'd start teaching me how to drive. I got my permit, obviously, and then we started practicing driving. Actually, the first time I practiced driving was in Wyandotte Park, and I got pulled over by a cop. And I was in the parking lot.
Were you practicing in his car?
Yeah, he was there.
Yeah,
he was there. But like the cop was just like, he laughed about it. The cop was like, "Oh, I didn't know. I had no idea what you're doing." I was like, "Man, I didn't know what, like if you're trying to sell drugs or something."
You're like going in circles.
Well, in Wyandotte Park, man, it gets sketchy at night. Bro, so
I was so nervous though. So like I did like the whole 10 too.
Oh yeah,
I was just like, "Yes sir, no sir."
Oh, I mean, we were talking about that the other day. I'm like, because you know, a lot of times like with like the political stuff, they're like, we were talking about this the other day. Like I was like, it's not like the police officer comes up to my door and I'm like showing him like, "Hey, you see this officer? I'm white. We're buddies, right?" Yeah. I'm like, I get nervous too. I put my hands on there and I'm like, "Yes sir, no sir. You know, there's a gun in the glove department, sir. You know, whatever."
Yeah. But McKenna, he's a dumbass. He's just like, "Dude, we're just driving." And McKenna's a firefighter, so he's like, all the firefighters and police officers are like all like in a clique, basically.
Yeah, of course.
So like they're like, he was like, "I'm a firefighter," blah blah blah. Dude basically just, you know, fucked off and went away. And I was like, "Oh, good luck with your driving." And then so that was my first like driving lesson experience. And then obviously time built up, and I got my driver's license, which was really really cool. And then, you know, wrestling season happened. I ended up getting 3rd at state that year. It was okay year. Definitely got better at wrestling. And then McKenna was like, "Hey, I'm moving." And I was like, "What? Why are you going to move? Like, where are you going to go?" And he was like, "Taylorsville, Kentucky," which was, I mean, I don't know where.
It's out there.
Yeah, it's out there.
It's not too far.
It's not too far.
Like what, like an hour maybe?
That's a long. I mean, like when you're talking to like a guy in high school, right?
Yeah.
Like,
in high school, it feels like a different world.
Yeah.
And so I was like, no.
Compared to Wyandotte Park area, it is a different world.
Literally, it's completely different. I was like, no. And it was weird because I had this girlfriend at the time. I'd been dating her for about 2.5 years. And then I was like, and McKenna had asked me, he was like, "Hey man, like I know you're like, you guys got like a little rough situation going on. You can move with me if you want." Like my lady, like she said, "It's okay. You can come. We're like an hour away. You can come live with us or whatever." And I was like, "I got a girlfriend." Then like the next day, guess what happens? She calls me and breaks up with me.
Best thing ever.
And I was so sad. But right after that, I called him and I was like, "Hey, I think I'm ready to move. Like I think I'm ready to go." And I asked my mom, and mom was like, "Yeah, it's totally cool as long as you just check in and stuff." And then we're like, "Okay, so I'm gonna move there." And then KHSAA, like the Kentucky Athletic Association, they're like, "Yeah, so you moved with someone who's not your legal parent. You can't wrestle." And then I was like, "What?" So Tom had to legally adopt me. And so I was 17, I guess, at the time. And he did.
Wow.
But even after that, they were like, "You still can't wrestle." And the reason, like what we're told, is like the AD from Iroquois was like, yeah, this is suspicious. The fact that you're moving with your former wrestling coach or whatever, like, I guess he maybe thought it was like a pedophile or something. I don't know. That's weird. Yeah. But I don't know. If, like, for some, he was like, this is suspicious. Like, this is cheating or something. Like, but we were going to Spencer County High School, which literally never had a state placer in wrestling. So it's like, it's not like I was going to, you know, a awesome private school.
Yeah, you're not going to St. X or like something, you know?
Yeah, I'm just going. Like, I'm just moving somewhere to have a better life. And so that year I wasn't allowed to compete. So my senior year of high school, I did not compete for the state, but I did compete on the national circuit. So the biggest tournament in wrestling for high schoolers is called Fargo. And it's in North Dakota. And so instead of training for state, I trained for Fargo, which is a different style of wrestling. It's freestyle, which is like the Olympic style. And I ended up training really hard with this school called J-Town, which is really close to Taylorsville, obviously. And they had some amazing wrestlers, like 2 guys around my weight that were both state placers and just really, really guys. So they really rose my level and I rose their level. And then I started training with this guy named John Lampy. He went to Chattanooga, Division I national qualifier 3 times and like 3-time state champion Kentucky from St. X. And my level went from like 5 to like 8. Like if you want to say like high school standards. And then I went to Fargo and I ended up placing 8th. And then,
well, that's pretty good considering you weren't competing throughout the year.
Right.
Because you're just like, you're training hard, but you're not competing.
Right.
Out of how many? Like 8, and I'm sure he said it's the biggest tournaments. How many were?
Wait, I placed 7th. I'm sorry, I didn't place 8th. Fact check me, guys. But 7th, yeah, 7th. So out of about 126
that's crazy.
kids.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So it's the biggest tournament, like hands down. Like, and some brackets are much bigger than mine. Like some brackets are in the 200s, like 160 pounds.
So you're wrestling, I mean, just a ton of matches. Like, is it like a couple days that it is, like, or is it
3 days?
Okay,
3 days long, and yeah. So it was. I had gone to Fargo the year before, and I placed in Greco, but Greco is like no one really wrestles Greco, so like it wasn't like a big deal that I.
Could you, like, if people don't know, like, could you quickly just like, what are the different, you know, folk, Greco? What's like the main differences in the styles?
In Greco and freestyle, back exposure causes points. In folk style, back exposure doesn't cause points unless there's like 4 or 5 seconds, or in high school, 2 or 3 seconds.
Okay.
And then there's no top and bottom, meaning there's no like, you know, I can't just stay on top of you for 2 minutes straight and try to pin you. In freestyle and freestyle and Greco, if I take you down, you have like 5 seconds. And if you don't turn them in 5 seconds, meaning just flip them on their back a little bit or leg lace them, then you're getting up. In Greco, no leg touching. So it's more like judo. I call it like no-gi judo.
I got you. More upper body control.
Well, it's very similar to judo in the sense like where judo used to have leg attacks and they took those out in the 2000s because they had all these like Russian cats coming in and doing like fireman carries and stuff. Because they'd have like, it's happened several times. Like Sambo guys would come from like and do some stuff. They would outlaw those grips. And then they changed it to where they could do the leg attacks. But in judo, it's the same thing where they go for the takedown. And if they get and if you land flat on your back on the throw, it's over. That's it. But if they hit the ground not flush, and then you have you know, a few seconds to try to go for something. And if you don't get a submission or advanced position, they just stand you back up. And then you go back for the throw. So it's very much focused on the throw and not the actual groundwork.
Gotcha.
Yeah, exactly. And so Greco, super, like, it's hard. Like, it is a hard style, like on the international level, but in the United States, we struggle with it really, really bad. Just like other countries, like, struggle with jiu-jitsu. Like, I'm pretty sure North and South America basically control jiu-jitsu. I mean, versus there are other guys, right? Like, that are good.
It's much more entrenched, and we have a longer history here in North and South America than we do the rest of the world.
Right? Like, they're good guys in other countries, like very good guys. But it's like the same thing. Like with Greco is so young in the U.S. that like we have really good guys. Like we have guys that will smash me, hands down, in Greco wrestling. But our really good guys are not even close to their 3rd or 4th best guy in Greco. So it's like we get guys who make the Olympics and stuff in Greco, and it's like no one ever does good except for Bruce Baumgartner.
Well, I mean, like what we had, I think Matt Lindland took what, 2nd?
Yeah,
he was a dirty wrestler. He'd bite people's ears and stuff like that. Like, there's some videos of him. He'd like bite on the side of this stuff. I feel like there's a couple guys that placed. I don't know of anybody that's won.
It's been a long time. I think in like 2000, 2001, 2002.
And then we had, you know, obviously we had Rulon.
Yeah, I said Bruce Baumgartner.
Rulon,
yeah,
big
Rulon.
You know, I was wrestling at the time when that was like I was in high school and we had a big poster like of him.
Yeah,
you know, but even when the fact that he did anything with Karelin was like impressive. And the fact that he beat him on a very small technicality, but I mean, even the fact that like at the time,
that was huge. I mean, it was like a huge
dude, but the fact that Karelin couldn't just smash him was like, even that itself was huge.
Yeah, Greco's horrible. I hate it. I got it.
So you did bad. You got literally 7th out of like the best people, the best wrestlers,
hands down the best. Like everyone that I wrestled, like everyone else who had placed in my bracket wrestled Division 1. I was the only person in that whole bracket to not wrestle Division 1, and multiple of the guys in my bracket were Division 1 All-Americans. Like in the time that I was in college, and some of them are still wrestling. Yeah, it was crazy. So I had basically already committed to Lindsey Wilson like before that, but I didn't really sign the papers or nothing. But I had tons of Division 1 offers, small ones, no full rides. Like after I'd placed, but I had a full ride to go to Lindsey Wilson College, which is an NAIA school. Which, if you don't know, there's Division 1, 2, 3, NAIA, JUCO, and then Christian Community College.
I don't know anything about that one.
Yeah, no one does.
I didn't know about that one.
No one knows about that one. But I only know about that because like there's this like guy named like Jim Grumwall or whatever who does like wrestling camps. But anyways, yeah, so I went NAIA, which is like all small private Christian colleges, and they're all liberal arts schools too. I think like for the most part, they're all liberal arts schools. So there's only about 5,000 kids max at one of these schools. And yeah, so Lindsey picked me up, and then I went to Lindsey.
Now, what's interesting about that, like the Tom thing is like, you kind of building this bond. So I'm curious, were you close with your father at all?
No, I think I was probably a few months old when my dad and my mom like split. So my dad was just he was like a drunk, bad dude, a little abusive to my mom. And so like my mom was just, apparently she was just tired of like the abuse and stuff. And she ran away. So she went to like a shelter. She took me, my brother, and my sister to a shelter and just stayed there. I don't even know the shelter's place. She only stayed there for like a week. Yeah. And then lived with my grandma. And then after that, she started to get a job and stuff. And then we got our own place, like an apartment, and then basically lived there for a while and then just moved around. Yeah. But yeah, I met my dad a few times. Not the best experiences. Yeah. But it's hard to to even want to meet someone like that. Like after like you've heard like what they did. I know there's always two sides to the story, but it's not, I don't know.
Well, and there's also like, I mean, there's like, I wasn't very close to my father either. And, there were things that my mom said. Obviously, I'm sure she had certain roles to play, but there's also the thing like he never really even came around. It's
right.
Like, so
that was the thing.
It's like if I had a kid out there, I'm like, you best bet your ass. I don't care what was going on. Like I'd be like bugging them all the time. Like, let me see my kid.
Yeah. And same. So he was never like that. Like he showed up the first time I remember really meeting him. I was like 16 or 17. He showed up to my aunt's house. So funny story. Like I had actually lived with my aunt before I moved with Tom. My mom had moved away from Iroquois, and she was like, "Hey, Brandon, you want to stay at Iroquois and still wrestle?" I was like, "Yes." And she was like, "Okay, your aunt lives right here." And my aunt was like, "Cool, Brandon, you can stay with me for 1 year," which I did, which was fun. Just because like district rules, and if you move like 5 blocks to the left of one place, you're in a different district. Right, yeah. And so that's what happened. So I stayed with my aunt for a year. Nothing weird, nothing crazy. And then my dad randomly showed up one day. I was like, "Hey, Brandon, how are you doing?" And I was like, "Fuck off! Like, I don't want to hang out with you." Yeah. So he lives in Tennessee apparently, and he came all the way there to like, I think his mom lives in Louisville. Okay. And he came like pick something up, and he like heard that like I was staying with my aunt somehow, some way, like who even knows? And he like came to try to talk to me, and I was just like, "No, like, fuck off, dude! Like, get out of here." Yeah, it's weird. And it was just, it was a really weird dynamic for sure, and. Yeah, like me and my brother were just like, we did our best to just avoid him. Like, because he just tried to talk to us when we became of age to basically be adults, And my brother's in the military, and like my brother, like said, like this guy tries to contact, like, he gets like different phone numbers and tries to contact my brother and stuff. And I completely blocked him off of everything. Same thing. He just it's weird. It's just really, really weird. But basically, like same as you, like he didn't come around. He didn't help my mom at all. My mom was like really poor. She worked at Denny's for like almost 20 years. You know, that's Denny's, you know what I mean? And, and she had 4 kids. So
hard.
Yeah, you know, and he didn't help. He never paid child support, never did nothing. And so why should I respect him? Because like even if he was a good guy, and even if there are 2 sides of the story, he didn't even try. Yeah. So I don't know. No respect to give him, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean it's one of those things where, I mean, there you know, there's an idea, you know, the definition of character, like someone shows character. I think a lot of times that's shown with your ability to follow through with a decision you make after the excitement is over. You know, and I think that you see that like with dedicated parents, right? It like kids are made out of excitement and whatever else, but it takes a lot of character to raise them. You know what I mean? To stick around and go through the difficult stuff, because it's not easy, you know, to like deal with a kid and even work it out with your baby mama if you know, things don't go great, or even to work on yourself to where you can make things better. So I'm curious, what was your mom like? So you're like, I'm gonna go move in with my wrestling coach out in Spencer County. You know, I mean, for most people, like I'm just thinking about no, I'm thinking about this because like my mom, like, you know, my mom is like, if I had told her that, she probably would have looked at me like, huh? Granted, I wasn't as good of a wrestler as you were, so maybe it would be different. Because obviously you probably started in college to scout you out and stuff like that, so it'd be a little bit different. But like, how did that conversation go down? Like, was she just completely cool with it, or did she have apprehensions or whatever? Or
she was really, really cool with it. So I love my mom. That's the greatest woman in the world to me. Like, she's my best friend, and like I love hanging out with her and seeing her still to this day. But like, she's always been like, man, like I'll support. Like, she was like, I can't give you much. I can't give you money. I can't really take you places because I'm always working or doing something. But I will support you if like you find a way to do those things yourself. And it's like, it might sound shitty to some people, like, oh fuck, your mom doesn't support you or whatever. And it's like, no, like she did support me, like in her own way. She was like, Brandon, like by the time like I'm 17, and like the culture of like, you know, this part of, you know, Louisville is kind of like when you're like 17, 18, you're a grown man now, you know? And so she was like, you're a grown man. Like, it's like, what do you want to do? Right. And she asked me, she was like, what do you want to do? You're a grown man. I'm not going to hold you back from doing nothing. And I was like, oh shit. Like, okay, is it all right? Well, I guess I'm going to go move over there. And she was like, okay, like, good. I support you. I love you. She was like, but remember, you better not ask me for no money or nothing. It was like, I still got shit to take care of over here. And she was, and Tom was basically like, man, yeah. He was like, don't worry, I got you on everything. And he was a really big help to my mom. My mom didn't need his help, you know, and because she would get mad at me if I said she needed, like, but I know that he did help her out.
Sure,
like,
of course.
And they never even really talked. They met like once or twice, which is crazy, right? But my mom was basically like, you know, Brandon, once you leave, like that's it. You can come back, but like while you're gone, like you're gone. Like
you're on your own.
Yeah, like take care of your shit. And and she was like, do you think she was like, do you think he's gonna rape you, kill you, or, you know, kidnap you? I was like, don't think so. Yeah. And
I'm a good deal bigger than him.
Yeah.
You know, like, he could probably beat me up or whatever with some punches, but I could probably get away from him.
I could definitely get away from him if I tried, you know? And yeah, so she was like, okay, you're good, move. And I was like, oh, thanks, Mom.
Well, I think you saw like somebody that had a family that was raising, you know, kid, had, you know, pretty stable. And I think you saw maybe some stability in that, right?
That is awesome. I mean, he's a firefighter. Like, sure. I basically gave her his resume too. You know what I mean? He was an MMA fighter. He wrestled. He is a firefighter and was at the time. Had his own lawn service. Still does. Like, she was like, and I think for like both me and her, it was like, yes, this is a form of stability. Like, when I live with him, I have different things to worry about. Like, I get, like, in a sense of the word, I hate using this word, but I get some privileges now to where I'm like, I don't have to worry about, like, potentially when I become 18 and graduate high school, I don't have to worry about getting a job and help my mom pay for bills.
Right.
Instead, all I have to worry about is training,
wrestling,
and getting a scholarship to go to college.
Keeping your grades up and stuff.
You know what I mean? And then, you know, he like, even like unbeknownst to him, like he lifted a burden off my shoulders by letting me. It was a hard life, man. Like, he made me become a really disciplined like man, which I'm super grateful for, because I thought I was disciplined until I lived with him, and then I really like grew. But yeah, he he just like I don't know. I gained some privileges, I guess, living with him.
Well, I think it's interesting. Like you gain things from multiple people, right? So for instance, like your mom, like, I mean, just, you know, my mom had 3 kids, yours had 4, right? So we both watched a woman like grind and just have to make do with whatever the hell you got and just deal with it. Like you can't complain about it, you just got to deal with it. But, you know, having, you know, I've had multiple male influences, and obviously I'm sure you have as well. But like obviously with Tom, you get there and you now get like a different experience. And there's just something about that. If you're a young guy having a certain male influence, it's something that's so hard to replicate. Having like a strong male influence that can discipline you and put you in check and bring a certain order into your life. It's something that it's different, and it's hard to explain. You know, but
yeah, he was like one of the only like guys that I had respected. Like after I became pretty decent at wrestling, I will say like the negative thing about that confidence that I got is like, I think I had a little bit of like a hate towards other grown men. And I don't know, like that could have been like a reflection of like my own insecurities and stuff like that. But like, he was like one of those guys where I was like I think it's because like I basically brainwashed myself into thinking this is the lifestyle you're supposed to have. Like when you're like a wrestler, go hard, eat healthy, do all these things, be disciplined and stuff. And like because of that, it made me really hate the men that I was around because they were really lazy. And I love them, like my family, like all that, but they're very lazy. And like on the outside, you're like, damn, these people live shitty lives. Like they're not living to their potential. And I had a very like negative view of like the grown men around me. And like he was like one of the first ones who came in. He was like, I'm a bad motherfucker too. And he was like, I'll beat your ass, Brandon. You know, like, and he was like, but I'll love you while I do it too, you know, and I'll help you be better. And so like he gave me like, it was like a new dynamic. Like I never had something where I was like, oh shit, like I don't want to talk back to him. Like I actually like, not out of fear, but I was like having so much respect for him. Like for me, like before I wasn't even in jiu-jitsu or anything, like he was like the first MMA fighter that I met, you know, like for me, like even though relatively he's not a great MMA fighter, like to me, this guy was like, this was the most badass person in the world. Like when I was like a kid, you know what I mean? And so I was like, I want to be like this guy, you know? And so I did everything to try to be as much like him as I could. And that I feel like when I was in high school, I really needed that. Obviously like now we're a lot different, but like then like he was the first person that I could be like, I want this to be like.
We had a model.
Right.
Like that's so important for like everybody, like, you know, for people to have models to look up to, you know, and have someone that you can, and I feel like it's something where when you get to meet someone, like I remember the first business owner I ever met. Like I was, you know, I grew up super poor. I never met a business owner. Like I was like, I didn't think, like, you know, I thought they like all lived in like giant mansions or something, you know? And then I started training jiu-jitsu. I was 18 years old, and I meet this guy named Al. And like, you know, he owned a bunch of real estate and he owned a bunch of like little small businesses. I'm like, oh man, you know, and he would just talk about stuff. I'm like, you know, even listening to his lifestyle, like he'd call me up sometimes like, yeah, Chew, just got done having a nap. It's 3 o'clock. I'm like, what do you mean you just got a nap? He's like, well, he's like, I had a nap, you know, like he's like, you know, I have my manager working this and I've got this and I've got to do some work later, but I've decided that I want to have a little bit of time in the day for my naps. I'm like, well, because he's a business owner, he gets to decide. I was like, that's so cool. He gets to dictate what he's doing. I'm like, I want to do that someday. Right? But it's both a model and it also kind of makes it real because you're like, okay, this dude's a badass, whatever. And like now you get to be around him and you kind of like rubs off on you a little bit.
It did. It made me like, man, he frustrated me because like there were so many times where I just wanted to be like, I mean, you've met Tom, you just want to be like, I want to punch you in the face, but like I know there's consequences if I do that. Like I know there's like, but he taught me a lot of lessons. Like, man, like I had like a really bad problem about being clean and stuff and being really forgetful, and he would be like he would just be like, motherfucker, like you better go do this, go do that. Like, you got chores every day. Like when I went and lived with him, it wasn't like all I'm gonna do is just sit down and chill at his house when I'm wrestling and be like, these are the list of things that you need to get done every single day to like deserve to live with me. Basically, he didn't say it that way, but it was, you know, it was like the dynamic.
That's the agreement,
right? It's an agreement. Like, hey, like you're gonna get this shit done, and like this is gonna be the quality of your life. And like he even got me a gym membership, but he was like, you need to go lift in the morning, like before school. So like that built a really good. He didn't like make me lift in the morning, right? But he was like, I'm gonna get you this gym membership. You're not going to have that much time in the day. You're going to live like the best. He'd be like, this is your best option. Basically, he was like, you lift in the morning, go to school, you wrestle. So I had to drive to J-Town to wrestle. Right. So it'd be like in between, like after wrestling, there would be no time for me to lift, or there would, and I'd be super late and create bad habits. So he basically put into me like waking up early in the morning, like 5:30 to 6 a.m., go lift. School starts 7:30ish. Then I'd had school, practice, make sure my grades are good. Like he actually cared about that shit. Like he'd be like, "Better be getting your shit done." And he helped me get a car, which was awesome. So he gave me my first job also, which was cutting grass with him. And he was like, if you save up, $700, I'll match that 700 and we'll get you your first car. And so it took me a few months, and I got that $700. He matched it. We got my first car, and I don't even know what type of car it was, to be honest, because I'm not good at that stuff.
It ran.
Yeah, it ran. Yeah, exactly. But he helped me get my first car, but he made me earn it too. And I was like, dang, like, dude, like I loved that car. Like I appreciated the crap out of that car
because you earned it. You actually had to work for it rather than it being given to you.
Right, exactly. And he paid for my insurance and stuff on the car, and he was just like, this car is like, it's not just like have fun. Like you should have fun. Like you're a kid. Like he never took that away from me. He was like, you should have fun and you should make friends and go do like stupid shit sometimes because you're a kid. But also it was like the expectation was like, hey, like you're not a normal kid either. And it's like, I'm not going to pay for you to go to college. Your mom's definitely not going to pay for you to go to college. Your dad is definitely not going to pay for you to go to college. So it's like, who the fuck, like, how are you going to earn it? Are you going to earn it like just training once a day? Like, no, like this car is like literally like a vehicle to like your future. And so it's like, I never had like the habit of waking up early in the morning, even like when I was like placing a state and stuff. Like I never had that habit of waking up early in the morning, lifting, and then doing wrestling, and then learning. Like, although I learned recently my stretching was not very effective, but I was stretching for like as much as like what I thought was right. Like I was at least doing a lot of stuff.
You got pretty good flexibility.
Yeah,
you're a fairly flexible dude for your size.
Right, and exactly. But like, when I got in college, I learned we had like pretty good trainers that were just like, Brandon, you're stretching really bad. And because I don't know. I don't even know how to explain how bad it was, but I guess it was not good. But anyways, I got into like good habits, like like relatively good habits for like the time that I was compared to other high school athletes.
Especially for a high schooler.
Yes. Like I was hands down like ready to be in college. Like by the like the end of my senior year, like towards the time that I placed at Fargo, I was like, yeah, I'm a college wrestler now.
So how'd it go? Like, I mean, Lindsey Wilson. So did you have success right off the bat? Was there like adjustment period?
Yeah. So no, I mean, I didn't really have to adjust that much. Though the biggest thing was like we talked about like folk style top and bottom. Like that was like my biggest adjustment was like like understanding how to, because there's so many little techniques like with the top and bottom wrestling that it's ridiculous. Like it's so ridiculous. And then college, like if you are not up to par with someone who is really good on top, you're never going to get off bottom. And so like my freshman year, I really struggled. So I ended up placing fourth at nationals my freshman year. And realistically, it was because I didn't know how to get off bottom. And like it really got me like in a couple of matches. I would like lose to guys. Like I would have taken man A down like 5 times. He took me down 4, but he could hold me down on bottom and get stall points and stuff. So like I would lose. So like in college, it was my first year. It was just like, damn it. Also, I wasn't lifting like very well either. So it was like learn how to lift properly, learn dieting, and learn how to get off bottom and ride people on top. And then I stayed that summer. Like, so I ended up asking my coach, like, hey, this is like a true story. I tell this all the time. Is like, how do I become a national champ? How did like Joe Cozart was like our first national champ. I'm sorry, Charlie Pingleton and then Joe Cozart were our first national champs, like back to back. And then I was like, how do I like get up there like with them? Because in our room we have like this thing that has like, just like you guys have like the pictures of black belts, we have like the names of the national champs on the wall. And that's going to be there forever. And I was like, how do I get up there? Like, how do I do what they did? And so my coach was like, well, the number one thing is you suck on top and bottom. You're horrible. And it's like, you're very good in neutral. You're really good at taking people down, but you suck at top and bottom. He's like, you need to stay here during the summer. And I was like, what? I got to stay at this. So this town had 6,000 people when school was in. Has a little less than 1,000 people when school's out.
You got like a stoplight.
Yeah.
Like
so
one stoplight.
Right. So we're pretty close.
There's nothing else to do.
No, there's not shit to do. And so we're close to Campbellsville, which is a lot bigger of a town, which still relatively is nothing compared to Louisville. And so he was just like, you stay here during the summer, we're going to get you better. I was like, fuck, I got to stay during the summer. I was like, okay, let's do it. So I ended up staying there in the summer, and I trained my ass off on top and bottom. And I also got better in neutral and stuff. Like I did a lot of training in neutral too. And then obviously like the next year I ended up winning nationals. And the thing was like I murdered people on top like the next year, and no one could hold me on bottom like whatsoever. I did take some losses that year. I took 2. I don't even remember how I lost. I don't know. I lost to like at some division 1 tournament, Lindenwood Open. Just lost like a takedown battle basically. But I improved a lot in that summer just because I literally was like, I've heard this like with some jiu-jitsu guys. I think it was Mikey Musumeci was talking about right now he's focusing on like all his leg stuff, like his ankle locks and like breaking mechanics. Well, on bottom, like one of the big things for me was like focusing on really fighting like hand position and getting hand control and stuff, and getting back pressure, and like those are like all little details where you're like, dude, you can fix those in like 1 or 2 days. And it's like, no, not against good guys. So it's like understanding timing, understanding like truly what like real pressure is, understanding how to like fake pressure, like lots of little things like on bottom especially. Like I just focused on for like 6 or 7 weeks during the summer, and that next year I was just like, whew. And yeah, and that year was the 2 guys I lost to were pretty decent. They were really close matches. And then but I after that year I never, like after my first year of college, I never lost to anyone in my division again, which was good, I guess. Mostly top and bottom was like
not a bad thing to bad stat to have.
Yeah.
I think like, you know, just hearing you talk about your concepts and your ideas and like your way to kind of dive into these details, I think that's probably what's kind of helped you, I think, in jiu-jitsu. Just we've trained it, you know, a little bit together, and just you're almost like a sponge. Like you're not really using you obviously wrestling comes into play and you use it if you need to some extent, but a lot of it you're playing jiu-jitsu, like you're playing to the rules, like you're kind of trying to get yourself out of your comfort zone, I think. And that's like what's been probably elevates your jiu-jitsu, because I think you're not afraid to, you know, get submitted.
No, I don't care.
Or because it doesn't mean, that means it's practice too.
Yeah.
But like I think you've started just kind of like paying attention to jiu-jitsu, like the rules of jiu-jitsu, or
very
like the techniques that are specific to jiu-jitsu to transition your game. So I think that mindset of like the detail oriented and like working specific things, I think is probably what's been really helpful in your transition to jiu-jitsu.
100%. I think it's like crazy important. Like my college coach, he really taught me this more than anything, was be intentional about your practices. Like for me, like I'm not going to say what I've been working on because I don't want you guys to know, but you probably notice when I'm in practice. But like there's something right now for like the next, like I guess until ADCC trials that like I'm really focusing on. But I don't tell anybody like when I'm doing it. I didn't even tell my college coach when I was wrestling and doing it. But it's like I have like one thing usually, whether it's like on wrestling, it was top and bottom, or even my last year of wrestling, it was scoring in the first 30 seconds of every single live go. Like I made that like my mission in practice, was like I'm scoring in the first 30 seconds. Like I don't care. And I had some really good wrestlers in my practice room, and I had really good wrestlers to wrestle on the mat too in matches. But like in every single match, you can go check, I scored in the first 30 seconds of every single match. And I had 17 matches this year. Like, yeah, I guess it was this year, which is crazy. But it was just my goal, score as fast as I can. And like now in jiu-jitsu, I have a few things right now. Like one thing in specific that I'm focusing on that. And I'm not good at it yet, but I'm going to get good at it. Like I'm very confident in like following the process and not overcomplicating things. Like study the details, practice the details, fail at the details, fix what you fucked up on, go do it again, fix what you fucked up on again. And then eventually you'll get really good at it. Like that's what I think. You know, I did that with wrestling, so I trust that process is also going to work in jiu-jitsu.
That's a process for pretty much anything.
Right.
I mean, it's pretty much always that case, right? It's like you try stuff out, you mess it up, you fix it, do it again. I mean, I think that's why, like, if someone ever gets good at something, skill acquisition wise, you get good at something, you unlock a door, because then you can get good at pretty much anything, because there really isn't there's no magical process for anything. It's like you got to put the work in. There can be better training and worse training, better coaching and worse coaching, but when it comes down to it, you could have the best coach in the world. If you're not willing to do the work, doesn't mean anything. You know, you have to put the work in, and that involves you, like you said, looking it up, doing the work, failing at it, fixing it, doing it again, and just being like giving yourself time. That's a thing too, where like a lot of people, we live in a society that's so like instantaneous with like gratification, right? And so when you do jiu-jitsu, you do wrestling, you do any of that kind of stuff. Let's say you're like, man, I really want to be good at this particular guard pass. Well, you're not going to be good at it tomorrow. It's probably going to be like a month, 2 months, 3 months, a year, 2 years. I mean, like there was one like that. You sent me that video of me doing that back take. I was trying to hit that damn thing for like almost a year and a half in competitions and stuff like that, trying to really nail it down before I like hit it like flush.
Right.
And it's just like one of those things that was what I was after, you know, like for a long time. It's like most people can't stay focused on anything for a week, let alone a year,
even a practice.
Yeah. So
what do you think? I'm curious, you know, as far as like the gi, you've trained in the gi, like, what do you think the benefits are? I know it's probably really frustrating because, you know, people like me or that like the lapel will just do that to, you know, because it's great to have handles to slow somebody down, especially like you, because you're going to be moving all over the place. What do you think the benefits of training the gi have been for you, like improving your jiu-jitsu?
I think it makes me just use jiu-jitsu. Like that might sound weird, but because like in no-gi, I can get away with a lot of shit, especially like, I don't know, it just in no-gi, I can like allow people to take my back a lot. Like not really good. Like I can't let you take my back, or probably you either. But like I can get away with letting people take my back because I know how to scramble really well. Because like I said, in college, I worked a lot on bottom. Gotcha. So like it's the mechanics are pretty similar. You know, just have to worry about like focus on the hands to the neck more than the legs. But like for the most part, like I can get away from pretty like I think even decent people if they're on my back. But in the gi, it's like absolutely I cannot do that. Like I just feel like I don't know, maybe it's like a mental block too. It's just like I don't feel my wrestling scrambles as well in the gi. I'm kind of trying to get over it a little bit, but I think it just forces me to be like, okay, I'm gonna play like this game. Like I really like to play like the butterfly stuff right now. Obviously, Chewie's you're my main coach, and so you're really good at that. And like I became like really obsessed with actually trying to get good at like that normal like double over like butterfly sweep thing. Like the first time like we went against each other forever ago because it was so smooth, man, it was beautiful. But like so when I'm in the gi, I feel like I really have to focus on like how am I gonna play jiu-jitsu here, like I feel like a true beginner when I'm in the gi. Which is a good thing because I feel like my jiu-jitsu is getting much better like in the no-gi because I'm practicing the gi. I could be wrong, but I think I'm right.
That's always an argument or it's like, oh, if you're want to be, I think they both have benefits. It's all jiu-jitsu. Like it's all jiu-jitsu. It's just different types, different styles. I mean, yeah, you can't, somebody has handles. Like you can't just, you know, you can't just slip and move. And there's so much friction there. Like, and you get stuck. Yeah, that's why there's certain positions or certain techniques you can't do in the gi because it's just like almost like you get stuck. You can't move out of it. So I think it does, I think, negate a little bit of your mobility.
Negates a ton of it. And you have to focus on like those grips, like addressing the grips. Like when we went with each other, that's what you were telling me is just address the grips. Because I was trying to fight other stuff before I tried. Well, to fight the grips.
For me, like people, I like the cross collar grip a lot. It's one grip away from a submission. I mean, I'm almost there. Yeah. Like I'm literally almost there. It takes almost no effort if somebody moves. So you have to address it. And like, so in half guard, like Chewy always talks about, you know, just controlling that arm, that near side arm, because then they can't underhook and they can't. So like, that's one thing we were kind of working on. That's one thing I've taken that you've shown me. I use it all the time. I never like let somebody's just top arm just go out and do whatever they want. I always control it because I know if I can control that, then I can use my head and kind of get underneath them and like get them
I use that. You taught me that, and I've been
using something.
Yeah,
that's good.
And see,
probably Chewy taught me.
Yeah,
well, it's like there's certain things like I've learned that I like to do, but and then also people are really good at getting underneath you. Like because if somebody gets underneath you, they not only can sweep you, but they can take your leg. You know, they can do a lot of bad things. So you have to really fight to keep control, stay heavy. And you have already that, like using your head, something that's ingrained, like you're going to use your head as a control position already with wrestling. So something that's going to feed right into already what you do and what you're good at. So, but it's different, you know, like just the gi is it's great for some things. And obviously it's not applicable for other things. And one thing that I've kind of adopted, and part of this from Chewy, is because I try to look at positions, even though I use them in the gi. How can I use them in no gi? Are they effective? Or is there like modifications I can make? So that way my game's interchangeable. So if I do a lot of gi for a couple of weeks and I go to no gi, I'm not like just lost because I don't have my grips, and vice versa, right? I want to make sure I also know how to have my grips if I need them.
Right.
So
yeah,
it's just something like, I think you've been good about that, like just learning, being a student of the game.
Yeah, I'm like I said, like I really do try to just be like, if I like, you know, if it was a street fight, it would be different, right?
Sure, absolutely.
You know, but like if it's practice and I'm trying to learn and I'm not trying to have a big head, and like I even think like at first, like even when I first came here, I was still struggling with that. But then like as time went on and I started to get to know people more, I was like able to let my guard down a little bit. And I think that's made it a lot easier for me to be like, man, I need to learn jiu-jitsu. And I think I've gotten a lot better recently, you know, relative to who I am in jiu-jitsu because of that, like just being able to play stuff. And, you know, I actually prefer it now in practice, really.
What's your goal? Like so how old are you?
23.
So 23. I mean, you're pretty young. I mean, some people are starting
getting old
very early.
Old.
you're just coming into your
winding down from your athletic prime.
Dude, it's so crazy. Like I talk to people, I'm like, how old are you? I'm like, I'm 38. And I'm like, it's like I'm in the masters too, you know? It's just like shit. I'm not even like in the adults anymore.
Yeah.
But like, so it's not like you're not really getting a late start. You're getting a great start because you have, like, honestly, we talked about the base, and I think wrestling is like probably, if you want to do other things like MMA, I think wrestling's probably the best base to have. I mean, jiu-jitsu is very close there, and some will argue other way, but I think wrestling's so important just as a base. But like, what's your goals? Like, what do you want to accomplish in jiu-jitsu specifically? And is that like a detour to something else?
Yeah, I mean, I already told you, like, I do want to do MMA, like, at some point. But yeah, like,
is this news to you?
Yeah,
I didn't know.
Yeah, like, so I really do. Like, I really want to do it at some point. I don't know. I want to tell, like, I just, like I said, like, my mindset is like I'm a bad motherfucker, and I'm just like,
you want to see if you can prove it, huh?
Yeah, you know what I mean. And that's okay if I can't. Like, when I do it, and
you can do it. I mean, it's another place to test yourself.
But that's
another way.
Yeah. But that's down the road. Like, I like promised myself that I wouldn't do it until I'm a purple belt in jiu-jitsu, which could be 6 years from now. You know what I mean? 7 years from now. Who knows? Like, whenever it happens. And
you honestly, you probably do it if Chewy thinks you're ready.
Right. And so, but like for now, like in jiu-jitsu, like I mean, we have worlds coming up. Obviously, worlds not crazy important to me, to be honest. But like I do want to do good in it. Like I want to do my best. That like I really love ADCC. Like I love the style. Like I said, like this week when I went to that wrestling camp, I literally watched almost every single match from every single weight class from like the last ADCC on Flow.
Some good ones and some boring ones.
Yeah, some good ones and some fucking horrible ones to watch.
Who's someone you're looking at? Is there
JT
one?
Torres is my favorite.
JT Torres, he's fun.
Hands down my favorite. I love watching him. Him and what's the dude from Dan Herder Squad?
Gary Tonin.
Those two dudes are so fun to watch.
Their match with each other was great too.
Very good. And they went twice. So they did 2019 and 2017. And they're awesome. I love watching both of them. I really like the Rutolo brothers.
Yeah, they're phenomenal.
They're awesome too. I don't really like watching Gordon Ryan that much, but I watch him a little bit because he's really technical. But he's very boring to watch. I don't really like watching Nicky Rod that much. I like Craig Jones because, you know, like I really do like the leg stuff. Like I want to get really good at that, which might sound weird, but I really, really like it. So I like Craig Jones. I don't know. Like I watched a lot, like a lot of people. What's his name? Wagner Rocha. I watched him a little bit too. He's fun. He
gets rowdy.
Yeah, he's rowdy. He has a personality. I watched literally, if you name any of the big names, I literally watched their whole tournament. And then I watched like some of like the guys whose names I really don't know. I watched what's that guy? The guy you faced at Tim Spriggs. I watched him. Dude, he's really good.
He's
phenomenal.
He's really, really good.
He's super good.
Yeah. And
they got a great team out there too. A lot of Muhammad and Tim and
Muhammad and Tim had a crazy match when they were at the ADCC last time.
Yeah.
They're all over the place.
And Muhammad's quite a bit bigger.
Yeah.
You know, so it's cool. Like, I mean, they have a lot of tough guys that train. And
I loved watching all of them. I actually don't like watching Muhammad. I'm sorry. His style is really boring for me.
Muhammad, if you watch him in the gi,
it's probably better.
He's got a lot of judo.
Okay.
So like so his throws are like his throw. He's got great throws that he uses, and like I mean, like if you watch him in like a competition, he'll like launch some dudes in the gi, and then you see there's still trouble, I guess, like translating that over to the no gi and stuff.
Yeah, that's where I just think wrestling's better.
I think for no gi for sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Like for gi, yeah, I guess for like judo is just yeah, it's not the greatest for no gi.
If you slide a gi on and you go with like a good judo player,
yeah,
I mean, shit, dude. I mean, you're just like, I feel like I'm just dancing around trying not to get thrown.
Same.
And then you take the gi off, and then it's just one of those things. It's just a different thing,
right?
There's some guys that know how to translate it over.
It's hard against a good wrestler.
It's tough.
Like in no gi, like judo is absolutely useless against wrestling in no gi, in my opinion. And that's just because like we literally learn like from like little how to use our hips when people try to try to throw, and there's no gripping and there's no like I like judo a little bit, but not really. But it's like there's none of this, like the push pull, okay, boom, boom. Like judo's just too slow to beat wrestling, in my opinion, in no-gi.
Well, if it's I mean, if it's in no-gi, like I think in the gi, you're right. I mean,
and the gi wrestlers are fucked. Like usually, I think personally, like there's some exceptions, obviously, but like in the gi, I think obviously judo is going to win, and no-gi wrestling is going to win. If it's like who's going to take who down, because then it's jiu-jitsu after that. But yeah, I can't watch gi matches, man. I tried.
Gi matches are one of those things where, you know, when it comes down to it, like gi matches for me, it's another thing where it really depends on who's competing. Like because, you know, you can watch. There's old matches with guys that like JT Torres and stuff. Throw him in the gi. If he gets a good opponent, I mean, it's going to be a fun match to watch. But then sometimes you'll get these guys that'll put in the position like 50-50. And if in the gi, if you can't heel hook, the 50-50 really is not super effective, and they'll just teeter totter. And it's the most boring match ever.
I feel that. I mean, it's the same way in no-gi too. Like there's some like I said, I watched so much in the ADCC no-gi. There's some things that are like really boring, but like one of like the cool things that I've been like watching a lot is like how people, like the really good people, use their feet. Like in like when they're like standing and one guy's sitting, like more than just passing, but just foot fighting. And like I think I'm starting to become so interested in like the no-gi, especially the ADCC rule set, just no-gi in general. I guess that like I'm really infatuated with like the little details, like how people are using their feet just to even get to like passing positions and stuff. Where like in gi, I'm sure they're doing the same stuff, right? But like my mind is just like
I think some of it depends on the rule set too. Yeah, like, I think the gi and the no-gi, obviously I think people like no-gi because I think there's more movement, more action.
There can be.
There
can be. It always comes back to the opponents, because dude, you can watch a Gary Tonin match.
Yes,
it's always from back in the day when he might have had a gi match. They're always fun. You know, if he's got a good opponent.
I agree.
And then you get some guys, and it doesn't matter gi or no-gi, they're boring. Like, it doesn't matter if it's submission only, points, whatever, it's boring. You know, and then you watch some guys are always exciting to watch. You know, some guys just have that mindset of go. And some guys will always skirt the rules just enough to get the points, just enough to get the advantage, just enough to like do exactly just enough to win the match, but nothing more.
Yeah.
You know, and those guys don't really, you know, it's like one of those things where you watch the match, you're just going, oh, okay, here we go, you know, and you'll get 20 minutes of just kind of hand fighting, but no one really goes for anything. It's super boring.
Yeah, that's why I don't like watching Gordon Ryan. He's super technical, but he like only goes for subs, like really, right? And like, but because of that, like I watched his matches because he's so good. So like I'm trying to learn technique, you know, but like I struggle to watch like his longer matches.
I think from a wrestling standpoint, it could be harder to watch him because it's not as fast paced. But for me getting into it, like I can watch him and he'll break someone down and then submit them. You know, and I'm like, I enjoy watching that process of like, okay, what grip did he just take away? Okay, he just took that away. Now the guy can't do this.
Yeah.
That's fun. But it's one of those things where like I remember one of the guys that trained at the gym some years ago was a D1 guy. And I remember he came in and we're watching like a big tournament, and you know, there's these points where in jiu-jitsu you can't just bust out of a scramble because you'll get caught in something.
Right.
And like one of the guys literally wiped sweat off of his face for a second, and they're still hand fighting. And he looked at me, he's like, are they even going? Because, you know, from wrestling, you don't have time to go, let me wipe sweat off my eyebrows and let's go. You know, it's like, it's very strange. So the cadence is so different. And even in jiu-jitsu, there's guys that have a very different cadence, and his is very like, it's this like it has a rhythmic pattern to it that's not super explosive or whatever, and just slowly like breaks dude down and puts him into stuff.
Yeah, you just have to learn how to appreciate it. That's why like I like JT Torres, because his passing is like my favorite to watch him pass, which might sound weird.
He's got
like,
good wrestling too. He's got wrestling and passing.
Yeah, like so that's what I was like watching is like he'll take someone down and then obviously they'll try to get like jump to like close guard or something like, and then he'll just slowly pass them, and it's so beautiful how he does it. So like recently I've been focusing on like lots of little details of passing, and like he is my favorite person to watch on it, because he does it he does so well doing the style that I like take them down, and then he's like, okay, I'm gonna slow down now, like when I take them down, and then I'm gonna start to set up my pass, which I'm still trying to learn how to do. But like that's why I like him so much, because he does like the best of both worlds for me. Like he goes fast, but then he does like his technique is so freaking good. Like when it gets to the jiu-jitsu part of it.
You just missed him in 2019, didn't you?
Yeah,
because you came in, because I remember he was there the week before. Then you came in, and you came in on a Friday, and then it was like that Friday was when we closed the gym down for COVID, for the 2020 rather.
Not
19.
It was like when I came in like mid wrestling season, like winter break or something. I don't know.
It was March, so it was like
because
it's like it's because we had JT Torres in the week before, and then you were in there on Friday, and that was our last day of training before the lockdowns.
Sad. He needs to come back.
I know.
I think so. They're just. I mean, I guess he's open in New York. They're open. Yeah, which is great, because they were closed for a long time. I mean, like, and I mean, that threw everything off for because he was getting prepped for ADCC as well. Kind of threw everything off. But man, he was just fun to talk to. Like he was on the podcast. Really fun to talk to him. Just like he was so focused on the mental aspect of just competition and like, you know, taking care of your body, and just like his mental approach is really, and that's what, like, I think the common thing is a lot of these high level athletes and jiu-jitsu practitioners are so like physically gifted, some more than others, but like their mental is what the key difference is.
Yeah, dude, it's super big. Like
I like that's what they think, and I ask them. I like to ask like how much of this mental portion is like, you know, it's usually the majority. More often than not, it's usually the most important thing to their training. Because I mean, being the right frame of mind, like you having this approach, or even Chewy, like, you know, who talks about being first. Like it's like I'm going to do what I want to do. I can't control anything else, but I can control what I'm going to do. And so like, I want to hit this takedown in the first 30 seconds.
Yes.
Or I want to be aggressive and be first to, you know, to attack. So,
but see, the thing about the mindset is it's not just the mindset come game day, right? Like, you know, you can't just go, all right, game day's here. All right, I'm going to be first. I'm going to smash guy. I'm a bad motherfucker. And you know, whatever. Like that, you know, like for instance, you got to get up early. And you got to wake up and you got to bust your ass.
Yes.
You know, you got to train hard. You got to do these things. It can't just be one day. Like the mental aspect, because I think sometimes we think about, like when we think about the mindset, like the physical and the mental. It's like they're all intertwined. I mean, they're as intertwined as your mind is to your body.
Sure, absolutely.
They're not separate. You know, we like to separate them, but they're together.
Exactly.
You know, and so like even having the mindset of I'm going to focus on this position really hard because this is where I suck, and I'm going to focus on this for the whole summer. That's a mindset thing. Right? To be okay with, you know, I'm not going to go to home. I'm going to stay in this little ass town and train hard for a whole summer because I want to be a national champion. That's a mindset thing. Right? And so the mindset doesn't just mean like positive affirmations or anything. It's about the way that you approach all this stuff that you're doing. And I think that sometimes, because you'll hear people say mental or physical, it's like it's all together. But like the physical, the physical sort of is a fruit of the mental, right? If you train hard, you're doing all this stuff, that physical stuff takes place because of the way that you're approaching your training.
Right. You have to be mentally, you have to be like willing to grind. Like sometimes it's like, oh man, that's going to be a tough round. It's going to be a tough roll. Like, you know,
or it's going to be a tough summer.
Exactly.
A tough year, a tough decade.
And you, what you do, if you don't get up, for it, then mentally, if you're not prepared for it, your body's not going to want, you know.
Oh, 100%. And there's like little things in practice. Like one of the things is like tasting blood. I know that sounds crazy, not like literal blood, but it's like smelling blood, tasting it, and taking it. Like in practice, for me, it'd be like we're doing grinders, like a 30-minute grinder, and I see my partner is getting tired. I'm just like, I'm about to fuck
pour him on,
And it's like, some people don't do that. Some people are like, oh, he's tired. I'm tired. I'm going to relax, whatever. Fuck it. And in jiu-jitsu, I still do it here when I'm going live. Like, I'm still trying to take your fucking neck.
Sure.
But like in wrestling, like that was like my thing would be like, okay, we have like 51-minute goes, which we would do that bullshit. Like we had days where we'd warm up and then do those 51-minute goes. It'd be like, By go number 25, I can look at this guy's eyes and be like, he's tired. And it's like, and if you practice, like, I guess bringing your own energy up, because it's mental. It's like everyone's fucking tired, but it's like when I see you're tired and I'm tired, I'm just gonna decide that fuck you, you're way more tired than me. I'm about to take you out. Like, and so like you have to, if you do that enough in practice for years and years and years, and then you go to matches, like I don't give a fuck how good your technique is. If I get you tired and I see that you're tired, I'm gonna win.
Well, that's one thing I tell people. I'm like, don't show it. Like, no matter how tired you are, you can't show it, because if you show that you're tired to the other person, no matter how tired they are, they're instantly going to be like, I feel great. Like they're tired. I'm not showing it. So even though I'm tired, they're way more tired. I remember having a match. I went into I was a brown belt and the guy was a black belt. I went into overtime with him. He had an advantage on me, and so like it's like 30 seconds left. I dive on a Kimura and start wrenching it, and I get the advantage for it. So no points. So we go into overtime. I remember getting up, and we had a quick break to bring us back to center, and I'm friggin' exhausted. My hands are like tight and curled over. I'm like, God bless, I can barely clinch. And I look over, and he's like putting his hand on the mat, then his other hand, then he gets up to his knee, and then I'm already up. Yeah. So then I start jogging. I jog around for a little bit as he's working his way to center. I jog and then get back to center. I'm like, I'm ready to go. And then, you know, I was instantly like, I felt great, and went pour it on. Or even in like other competitions, like where you feel the guy go,
the exhale.
Yeah, dude.
The exhale. You know?
That happened by, like, I posted it on Instagram, was like my second national title match. Was like me and this guy, Tanner Farmer, actually went and trained with him in Illinois like this week. But he was the D1 transfer guy. Super cool dude. But like in our match, even he'll say it himself, like we went into overtime. I got a last second like stall call point. So I was losing with 10 seconds left to go in the match. And then I got a stall call point against him. Boom. So now we're into overtime. Like I just kept standing up and standing up and standing up, which is what got me the stall point. He gets off me. He backs up. I run to the line, and I just look at him, and he's on the ground, like getting up, crawling up, basically. And you can see it like in the video. He's like standing up, like, oh, and I'm just looking at him. And I remember how tired I was, but I looked at him. I was like, I'm about to fucking take your neck, bro. But it's because like I trained that in practice to be like, I'm like, if I see this motherfucker put hands on the knees, means you're dead. Like in the wrestling world, like especially against good guys, like if his hands on his knees, like I'm taking you out, bro. And so like I saw that, and I was just like, it was like boom, it was second nature. I ended up taking him down with like 15 seconds left, or like I took him down in the first 15 seconds of overtime, and then won my second national title. And like that was like one of those matches where I was just like, this is how important like those little things are. Like, how are you gonna practice?
You know, that's something where I was thinking about this. One of the guys mentioned this to me this a couple of years ago. You know, in wrestling, there's kind of it's like almost like a point of pride. I mean, you can like walk back to the center, but if you get some crazy asshole that's like running back to the center, like there's something to that. And so like even in jiu-jitsu, if I go out of bounds, I run back to the center. Yeah, because I want to let this guy know like I've got more energy than you. So I'll run back to the center really quickly, you know, and especially as they get more tired, I'm still getting back and running to the center if we go out of bounds. Like I want them to know I have more energy than you. My gas tank's deeper, because it's like if you've ever boxed before, and you punch a dude and you give him like the best punch you had, or you really nail him in the gut or something, you know, whatever. And then they just take it. It's exhausting. It zaps your energy and your morale, because you're like, well, I just gave this guy everything I got, and he just took it, and he's still coming at me. Like, you know, you could be getting exhausted, or maybe you're starting to feel tired. And if you get some guy that's running back to the center like a madman, you're like, dude, I'm getting tired. And this dude doesn't seem to show anything, even though that guy could be super tired. Yeah. And he's just used to being in that space. The fact that he got up and ran to the center starts to mess with you mentally, because you're like, well, what's going on? I'm tired. I'm breathing heavy. And this dude's running back to the center. This is
taking souls, bro. David Goggins. That's what you do. It's like talking about the dude who was like riding the little, like I don't know what they're called, but like those little boxes where they take you up to the mountain. I don't know.
Like a gondola or something?
Yeah, a gondola. And this guy had told David Goggins, like, yeah, I run like 10 miles a day up this mountain. And like, so David Goggins was like, okay, I'll meet you the next morning. And David Goggins was running as he saw the guy in the gondola, and he's like looking at David looked at the guy, and the guy was like, can't believe that he was there. And it's like, funny. He just took his fucking soul. And it's like the same thing. Like you can see when people are weak, and that gives you strength, and or like you should be able to, but it's practiced. Like it's for sure. Like you have to like you can't just talk about being a bad motherfucker on the same day that you have like a competition. Like you have to like live like I'm a bad motherfucker. Like I'm gonna break people and I'm gonna practice it. And like when I lift, I'm gonna do that way. And how I diet, it's gonna be that way. And like I don't know, like I'm gonna be proud of saying like no to bad things. Like I'm gonna do all these little things that make me so confident that like when I go out and like wrestle, or even now, like when I go out and do jiu-jitsu, and I'm sure I'll have some of those tough matches, and I'm just gonna be like, you know, in my head, I feel like I'm always gonna be like the guy who's just like the last man standing if it comes down to conditioning, you know, because you have to decide that, like you have to make it a lifestyle. And not everybody does.
This is true.
Is there some way that you, and Chewy, this is a great question for you. I've probably asked it before, but like how you maybe change some habits you don't like. Is there a way that you adjust, like get out of a bad habit?
Oh yeah, 100%. Like just stop fucking doing it. And that's like, that's like a crazy,
that's a 23-year-old saying that.
Yeah. And I know it sounds crazy, but like seriously, like one of the things I had a problem with was drinking soda in high school. And then when I got to college, I was like, God, it's like I should stop doing this. Like I know it sounds like this,
but how did you do it? Like I mean, there's addiction. There's a real addiction to sugar.
I know, like people. I understand, like there is, but this is like where, like I really do think like there's so much more power like in our mind than we think. Like with stuff that we're addicted to, like because obviously I was addicted to soda and I don't drink it anymore. But like one of the things that I literally just was like one day I was like, well, I want to be a fucking national champ. I'm gonna put that shit down.
See, that's the thing I think is important.
Yeah,
is like
having a why, you know?
Yeah. Because I remember I stopped drinking soda, and almost any negative habit I've ever done, I always had an idea, like an image of like, what do I want? So I was gonna ask you that if you had like a good clear, like, why do I need to stop drinking soda? I want to be a national champ.
Well, right. And that's what helps, again, like I talked earlier about having like confidence because of the little things you did. Like for me, it was like, I'm confident that if I stop doing this, then this happens. You know, like I'm confident if I go to jiu-jitsu practice long enough, you know, maybe 10 years from now, I'll be a black belt. Like, and I'm not afraid to like make commitments, and that could just be my personality type too. Yeah. And like, it really does sound stupid, but when I read David Goggins' book, like Can't Hurt Me, that's really like when like I elevated on that shit where I was just like, stop fucking doing it. And I, you know, I've never been addicted to drugs or nothing, but I guess soda is kind of a drug. Caffeine's a drug, you know, and just all the nasty shit that's in soda. So like,
but we can be addicted to behaviors. I mean, you could be addicted to drugs, you could be addicted to porn, you could be addicted to all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. So it's easier said than done to be like, I'm gonna stop doing it. But then it's like, I believe like it's really hard to microdose. Like it's like people try to like slowly wean off of stuff.
Sure.
Like, I don't believe in that. I think it's bullshit. I feel like you're just feeding into that still. Like, okay, I'll do a little bit today and a little bit less tomorrow, but oh fuck, I feel shitty. It's Saturday, but this used to be my cheat day. So like, let me just have like a whole 16-ounce thing of Mountain Dew. But you know, Monday I'll go back to like 4 ounces a day or something like. So like, I feel like you have to have like a goal, like a true why, and you have to like remind yourself like why is so important. Like you have to figure out who you want to be. And like, then you have to be like, okay, I'm going to stop being a little bitch and I'm going to decide to put this shit down and, you know, consume better things. Like for me, that was me and soda. Like that, like that's like the big one. I've never really had anything else where I had to like really be like, stop. Cause like my friends, like thankful for McKenna, but like the people, like the circle that I want to be around is very specific. You know, I don't have friends outside of people who do jiu-jitsu or who wrestle. You know what I mean? Because I don't want to, you know, like, I want to be around people who like are like common stuff like me, and that's how I was in college, you know, and that's kind of how I'm probably always going to be. And because of that, like it makes it like the people I love to talk to, they train at Derby City, you know, so it makes it easy for me to go to Derby City. Like, so I've never had like the bad influences, and when I'm around people who are shitty, I don't make them my friend. And sometimes if they try to be my friend, this might be a negative trait of mine, but I just like let them know like, hey, I don't like want to be associated with you. And that might be like a shitty thing, but like I really truly believe that like it's okay to like set your boundaries, and if you know your why, like no boundary is like too much. I mean, there's, you know, exceptions,
of course, but
like for me, like I really do believe having like that extreme mindset of being like that is negative to me. No, I don't know. I can't relate to like anymore. At least I really don't feel like I can relate to someone who's like, man, it's so hard to just like drop it, because like, even though it might sound like bullshit, like my mindset is like, no, fuck that. Like, I'm going to stop doing that.
You've trained yourself
to
do that.
Yeah.
You've kind of like conditioned yourself. So like, for me, the big thing was environment. So like, and you kind of mentioned that. So you kind of said your why, your environment, and then like really you've kind of built those habits in, like just by those things, knowing what you want. Essentially, there's one more thing I think you had said, but for me, it's like you got to change your environment. So if you want to be in a positive, like you want to be around like-minded people, right? So these people are world champions, or these people are like trying to achieve similar goals to what I want to achieve. So I know I can learn from them, or we're going to do it together, or we're kind of have the same process. So, yeah, I mean, I think it makes perfect sense. And like the why is really important. Like, why do you want to change these things? Yeah. Like what's the reason? Because if you don't have a strong, then like direction, like as to why you want to do it, then you're probably going to just fall off, and you're going to continue to, you know,
have accountability partners too.
Yeah,
that's sure. I didn't say that, but that's like a huge thing. Is when I was in college, I had this guy named Brett Bradford, also won a national title with me, like the first year that I won. Yeah. And that was my fucking accountability partner. Like me and that guy were just like we're going to bed 9:30. You know, we're going to bed 10. We're waking up at 6. Like we're gonna get our extra workouts in this day, this day, this day. You know, we're gonna lift together like this on this day, this day, this day, and like we're gonna do this, and then we're gonna talk about talking about your goals. Like we're gonna talk about our goals. Like we're gonna, which sounds like corny, because how much can you talk about wanting to win a national title? Well, shit, not enough. Like me and him talked about like I don't know, like we kind of just made it like we made our identity, which can be negative, of course, because you are more than your sport, but like we made our identity in that moment, like into national, like we were already national champs before we won national titles, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So like we had to like go full, like all in, and having an accountability partner who can do that with you is really hard to find. Like, you know, like now that like I'm out of college, that is hard to find for me, but like still, like I have great people, like great coaches at Derby City. You know, I still have my friends in the wrestling world who like really help me stay accountable and stuff. But without a good accountability partner, it is going to be hard to like drop bad habits, because you need someone sometimes to be like, hey, you're being a bitch. Like, don't do that. Like, and Brett did that for me at like all throughout college.
Well, and being able to have someone to stoke the flames, you know, because if you're on a course, it can get lonely. Yeah. You know, so having someone say, yeah, man, we're after this thing together. You know, it's like it kind of like stokes the flames and keeps that excitement alive with it, where if you don't have anybody to talk to about it, it can be kind of depressing or lonely, because it really is when you're chasing after something. It's kind of it can be a lonely path, because, you know, like you said, like, I mean, like for instance, my best friend from high school, we wrestled together, we got into jiu-jitsu together, and then he started getting into drugs, you know, and a lot of my friends, like I had to get rid of them, because I was like, it wasn't that I didn't like them. It was just that like, I don't want to be around someone that's like always doing drugs. And I don't want to be around someone that's always drunk. Yeah. I was like, it's like, I don't want to. And I know what's going to happen. If I hang around you long enough, I'm probably going to do some drugs. I'm probably going to get drunk.
Yeah, dude. So 100%. I don't want to do it. Yeah. Like for me, like as soon as, I think it was a few months ago, like me and you talked about like probably doing ADCC trials. And yeah, I think that was like June, the end of June is like when we talked about, and Worlds. I haven't drank alcohol since July 4th. And that was like, I think that was like that was July 4th was like kind of when I was like, okay, like I'm really going to do this. Like I'm really going to try to like be good at this thing. And I was just like, I'm allowed to drink until after ADCC trials, or hopefully ADCC. You know what I mean? Like, you know, you never know what's going to happen, but I still believe that I'm going to fucking make it.
Sure.
And if I don't, then I guess I'll drink after that. Like I'll have a drink, but like until then, like I'm not touching any alcohol. And it's not that I love going out with my homies and getting a drink, you know, I do. Like I'm a young adult. And so I want to do that like every now and then, but like right now I'm just like, no, like since July 4th, that was like the last time I drank. I was like, no, like I'm not going to drink shit. Like, how did I win a national title? I didn't drink. I didn't drink soda. I didn't eat fatty food, like crazy fatty foods. I didn't eat bullshit. You know, I slept right. Like I did all like the little things right. And so like for me to be the most confident that I can be, like when Worlds comes in like a week and a half, and then when the trials come in like a month later, then I'll like when I go compete at those things, you're going to see like I'm going to do my best. You know, I don't really care if I win or lose. But I do care about how I prepared. Like winning or losing it's out of my hands in a way. Like I believe that. Like I believe it's just kind of like you do what you do and the results happen. And I'm totally okay with that, because I'm more than the sport. But if I'm going to do it, I'm going to try my best, like in preparation for doing it. And so it's really easy for me to just be like, drop it. Like if this is bad, drop it. this is good, do more of it. You know, it's like why I started training. Like I go other places to train the no-gi days versus the gi days. Like I don't do gi right now because I'm training for 2 really big no-gi tournaments. Like gi's not a bad thing. Like we said, it translates.
Yeah.
But like for me, I've like truly believe I'm going to train as much no-gi as possible so that when it comes time to do no-gi, like this is like the habit I formed, like these no-gi habits.
So, Brand, we'll end on this, man. We always like to kind of give people a chance to like reach out to you. I know you run some coaching, like seminars and things like that. How can people get a hold of you if they want to like maybe work with you personally?
Just the best one is Instagram, which is Brandon Reed, REED, 3-time, and just 3-time is 3-time national champ. Of course.
Is it 3-time or 3X?
3X. Oh yeah, that makes.
We'll put that. I'll put the like your Instagram handle below just so people can get a hold of you because you've done some things like for local like even in the gyms. You've done some wrestling for jiu-jitsu specifically as well, and you run some classes at the gym too for that.
For sure.
Yeah, there's wrestling camps and stuff like that.
Wrestling camps, yeah.
All right, guys. So hope you enjoyed the podcast today with Brandon. Hopefully you got a couple of good tips for your training, and there's some good stuff in that one to learn from. Again, grappling. Sports aside, the method that you have to use to get better at them and win and things like that, that really doesn't change. It's pretty similar. And again, everybody has different ways, but, and it really comes down to whoever says something that kind of connects with you, but really the guts of it are pretty much the same, very similar, as far as how to get better at it. But again, hopefully you guys enjoyed that podcast. Again, if you want to support the podcast and get yourself some quality CBD products, you can go to charlottesweb.com. Promo code is Jiu-Jitsu. Save 15% on the order. Again, I encourage you to grab one of the tinctures or the gummies or whatever, and then take them consistently for a month to kind of see the effects that you have on them. See if it's everything that you've heard me and Eugene and everyone talk about, and hopefully it is. But, again, everybody's cannabinoid system is slightly different. So it could be different than ours. But, again, try it out and see what you think. Also, thanks to Epic Roll for making this podcast possible. EpicRollBJJ.com is the website. Promo code is Jiu-Jitsu. Save 15% on the order. Again, that's on all the Jiu-Jitsu apparel, the gis, the rash guards, the gear, all of it. So look on their website, look on Matt's website, figure out maybe something you might like, make up a reason so you can tell your significant other why you need to get this, and then get it. And then again, also be on the lookout because we'll be doing some Jiu-Jitsu rash guards and shorts coming up in the future with Matt. And so those will be coming up. So just kind of keep that, in your mind, because I hate it when people miss out because it happens. I try to post everywhere, but I try to do so it's not so obnoxious because I don't want to be like six posts a day about the same thing. But again, just kind of keep that in mind. Also, thanks to our sponsor, Manscaped, manscaped.com. Promo code is Jiu-Jitsu20. You can save 20% and get free shipping on any men's grooming product that they have on their website. Everything from trimmers to lotions to colognes to shaving things, implements to weed whackers. They don't actually sell weed whackers. That's just their nose trimmers.
That's right.
But any of their products, you can check it out at manscaped.com. And if you guys would like to join the Patreon and support the podcast as well, you can go to patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. You'll get access to years worth of podcast extras with the guests that we've had on it, which includes a number of Jiu-Jitsu black belts, ADCC world champions, and also some guests that come from other places in life, like doctors who work on people's backs and knees and everything else. And they share different ideas that they think would be useful to people. So tons of different stuff like that. There's also some video content on there as well, like techniques, of course, but also as well as like narrated rolling and sort of behind the scenes footage as well. So you can check that out at the Patreon website at patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. And then last, but certainly not least, you can join the Chew Crew email list, which is my newsletter that I send out typically Monday through Friday with everything from just sort of my commentary to things to specific jiu-jitsu tips. And for joining, when you go to jujitsu.net/join, JOIN, you get access immediately to 2 free ebooks. One ebook is called Focus Jiu-Jitsu, which is focused around helping you, just like you heard Brandon talk about in the podcast, bring a little bit more focus to your training with some different strategies. There's about 8 strategies in that book to really bring some attention to your training, either if you can control your training, whether you're the coach or you have an open mat to go to, or even if you don't, you can still find some strategies that will allow you to focus on your training just on a day-to-day basis, even if you're just a hobbyist that comes in a couple times a week, right? There's some ideas for you. And then the second ebook is on building a jiu-jitsu game plan, which I think is a really important thing to do. You talk to any wrestler, like you heard Brandon talk about having his favorite takedown, right? If it's a grappler, you need to know what your game plan is. You need to know what your best stuff is. It doesn't mean you always are going to use it, but you need to know what your best stuff is. Again, how are you going to focus on something if you don't know what your best stuff is? Or how are you going to compete or try to win against someone if you don't know what your best stuff is? So again, it helps you identify what that is. It's very short. It's like 3 pages. I'll show you mine, and then you can do yours. Again, and you can get all that by going to jujitsu.net/join. So guys, with that said, that is the podcast. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you got something from it. And as always, thanks for listening. If you're watching us on YouTube, thanks for watching.